Good morning, everyone. I call to order the July meeting of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Excuse me. Thanks to you joining us in the boardroom and by way of live stream today. We begin our agenda with the formal introduction of our new Vice President and Chief Budget Officer, Corinne Zewers. President Cunningham and Executive Vice President Goldman, would you please join me at the podium?
Good morning, Chair Hipsch, members of the board, and President Cunningham. It is my distinct pleasure to officially introduce Corinne Zewers as our new Vice President and Chief Budget Officer. Many of you know Corinne well, and we are thrilled to have her at the helm of our budget team. Since stepping into the role in June, she has brought steady analytical rigor and strategic vision to our complex financial planning, keeping our land-grant mission and the Elevate Extraordinaire 2030 roadmap at the center of every discussion, every decision, and everything we do. Corinne brings more than 25 years of public sector experience into this role, including 11 years right here at the University of Minnesota. Her deep institutional knowledge spans both system-wide finance and academic operations, having served as our Assistant Budget Director and as the Director of Research Strategy and Operations for the medical school. She has a proven track record of engaging transparently with stakeholders and financial managers across all 5 of our campuses. Furthermore, as a proud alum with her bachelor's degree and a master's of public policy from the University of Minnesota, her commitment to this institution is both professional and deeply personal. We look forward to the stability, leadership, and long-term focus Corinne will bring to our financial future. Please join me in officially welcoming Corinne to the role.
We will continue our agenda with the recognition of the Hobie Baker Award recipient and our outgoing Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, President Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. It's my honor to recognize an extraordinary student athlete from our University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs men's ice hockey team. This past April, sophomore forward Max Plant was named the recipient of the 2026 Hobie Baker Memorial Award. This award recognizes the top player in NCAA Division I men's hockey. Max is a native of Hermantown, Minnesota, and has a truly historic season, leading the Bulldogs with 25 goals and 52 points. But the Hobie Baker Award represents much more than standout stats. It's college hockey's most prestigious individual honor because it demands a strength of character, sportsmanship, and academic excellence. And I can tell you that Max embodies those values completely. Congratulations. In addition to his leadership on the ice, he's an NCHC Distinguished Scholar Athlete who's pursuing a degree in communications, and he regularly gives back to our community by volunteering at youth hockey clinics. With Max's win, Duluth now has produced 7 Hobie Baker winners, the most of any college hockey program in the country. On behalf of everyone at the University of Minnesota, we want to congratulate Max and the entire Duluth community on this great achievement. Max, you have represented your team, our state, and our university with an incredible commitment, and we are proud to call you a Bulldog. Max, please join us for handshakes around the horse.
Big award.
Maybe one more round of applause. Yeah. Now we will move on to recognizing our Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations. I'd like to invite Greg Goldman, our EVP for Finance and Operations, to join me at the podium. As many of you know, Greg is leaving the university next month to return to his hometown in California at USC. I am very grateful for Greg's leadership and counsel over the past 2 years. During this time, Greg has served the university exceptionally well. He's effectively guided our financial strategy through some of the most challenging headwinds that higher ed has seen in 50 years and kept a land-grant mission as his North Star. We wish Greg well as he returns to his home in California and to the University of Southern California, where he'll take on as a new role as Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations. Congratulations, Greg. Thank you.
Way to go, bro.
Exactly.
Not too often we get to honor two best in the country in one meeting, so let's give Greg a big round of applause. Okay, our third item is to approve the minutes and the consent report. Before we turn to consideration, President Cunningham, are there items you would like to highlight?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. The consent report is quite lengthy, but I wanted to call attention to just one specific item. I'm seeking your approval today of the appointment of Charles Nees to become the acting chancellor of the Crookston campus, the interim chancellor of the Crookston campus, as Chancellor Mary Hulse-Claus plans to retire at the end of the calendar year. I'm very grateful to Chancellor Nees for his willingness to step into his role and for his continued leadership of the Duluth campus. I would also like to thank Chancellor Mary, as she's affectionately known, for her leadership of the Crookston campus for nearly a decade. She fortunately will stay in the role, I must add, so we're not too worried, until the end of the calendar year. But we seek your appointment today for Chancellor Nees. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I or anyone on my team would be happy to answer questions about any items.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question, make a comment, or separate an item out to be voted on separately before I invite a motion to approve the minutes and the consent report? Regent Golly?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to remove item 3B, amendment to the presidential employment agreement, from the consent agenda, please.
Okay. Thank you. So with that removal, is there a motion to approve the minutes and the consent report?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It is then moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll take up the item that was removed. Is there a motion to approve that item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now we'll turn to discussion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Robin, did you have discussion?
Yeah, apologies. On the,
Okay.
we're talking about Yes, thank you.
Okay.
On the consent report, thank you.
Yes.
So the reason that I pulled the presidential review off, or I'm sorry, let me find the actual title. The presidential employment agreement off the consent report was because I wanted to talk about the fact that we just 2 weeks ago voted to both increase tuition for the least second year in a row and cut student programs, which have had really big effects already on our students. And so I just can't in good conscience support raising one of the highest salaries at the university on the heels of literally cutting student programs and raising tuition right this second. So I just wanted to pull that off for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next, we'll hear the report of the President, President Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. Before we get started, I want to thank Athletic Director Coyle for his leadership and his commitment to student athletes and to the University of Minnesota. During his tenure over, am I in the right place here? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in the right place. Sorry, here we go. I'm ahead of myself. Once again, I'll thank you, Chair Hipsch.
So, thank you.
A double thank you, Chair Hipsch. We can always go back to thanking Chair Hipsch. As I meet with people outside of the university, some of them have asked whether the work of the university slows down over the summer. And what I share is that while many classes are not in session, we continue to deliver on our academic mission and to serve Minnesota and the world all year round. Several federal policy changes on the horizon will significantly impact the university and higher education. We are diligent in our commitment and our resolve to ensure the university remains strong for another 175 years. These proposed changes, which we've commented on publicly, include a Department of Homeland Security rule that would limit international scholars and students to 4 years in the country. This would have broad implications for both undergraduate and graduate students. These are valued members of our community, our country, and our community broadly, and we're fully committed to ensuring all feel welcomed at the University of Minnesota. The second proposed rule change from the Office of Management and Budget would change substantially how federal agencies review and select grant proposals. While we certainly support transparent and independent review, the university stands firmly against the current proposal because it would impede inquiry and scholarship across all areas of our university. It would introduce a political review on top of merit-based scholarship. In fact, it could curtail the groundbreaking innovation that's at the heart of our mission. The current draft could put at risk groundbreaking research like the SPUD cell, a recent discovery from 2 College of Biological Science professors who developed the world's first synthetic cell that can feed, grow, and reproduce. That research, led by Professors Kate and Adamala, and Aaron Engelhardt and their teams, is a major breakthrough in biological engineering. In time, this innovation may provide solutions to some of our most challenging problems in medicine and engineering. And it's put the University of Minnesota in national and international headlines over the past few weeks. We've seen more than 1,500 stories from major media outlets, including the New York Times, CNN, and The Guardian. They all showcase the University of Minnesota as a global leader. We submitted public comments to OMB, as did many of our peer institutions, and those were available per an email announcement that I sent out this week. But right now, I would like to share a brief CBS News clip of Dr. Adamala talking about her transformational work with the SPUD cell.
All right, you want to see something kind of cool? Take a look at this. Bring it up on this monitor. This round circle here represents a cell built from scratch. It's a one of a kind. And get this, it can feed, grow, and replicate like a natural cell. What do you think about that? The scientists who built it call it a SPUD cell. And so we're joined now by a lead scientist now, Kate Amidala. She's the University of Minnesota professor, co-founder of biotech. She says this is just the beginning I guess, Kate, my question is just the beginning for what? For viewers who've never heard of this, how would you describe this spud cell to them?
Hi, thanks for having me. The spud cell is on the kind of a macro level, just like a natural cell. It has a membrane, and then inside it, it has genes and it has metabolism. The biggest difference between that and any other cell that we know of is that this one can be engineered. It's fully engineerable because we know exactly what goes in it. It has all the components known and defined. And that's not something you can say about any natural cell. So if you want to make things with biology, make different chemicals, different materials, compounds, it's much easier to convince the artificial cell to do that because we know exactly how to talk to it. We know how to engineer it.
Wow, it's pretty fascinating. So you contrast that with a human cell that sometimes goes rogue, gets of a mind of its own, maybe even turns cancerous. You're saying that this cell follows the commands of the creator, but I can imagine there could be a dark side to that as well. What are the upsides and the downsides?
The upside is that we have a full control over it. I don't like the word creator because I didn't create something new from scratch. What we did is we put together molecules and they behave like molecules are paid to behave. They're doing all the natural things. So we didn't create something new, completely new to nature. We're imitating nature, we're learning from it, and we're building on it. And the possible downside, like with every cutting edge technology, there could be, we call it dual use technology. There could be potential for misuse, and we're guarding against it by putting switches inside that cell. So it cannot escape the lab. It cannot live on its own. It cannot survive on its own in the environment.
Wow, it sounds like the stuff of Hollywood movies. So worst case scenario, say the switch fails, then what?
Then the thing dies in the environment because it's engineered from scratch. It's very wimpy. It doesn't have the ability to defend itself, to protect itself like natural cells. So if you release that thing into the environment, the first bacteria that's going to come across it is just going to eat it.
Got it. Pretty fascinating. What do you see the future, the next 5-10 years of this?
In the next 5 years, we're going to make it more robust, better. Right now, it's very sheltered. It can only replicate, it can only grow in the lab under very controlled conditions. We want to make it stronger and more robust so we can build bioeconomy on it. We can build it to make products, different chemicals, different drugs, even materials, and make it in a way that's better than natural biology. So expand on natural biology. That's going to help us move away from this petrochemical-based economy where everything we get comes from oil. And, because of oil, I just saw you had a segment on heat waves. Mm-hmm. That's part of this big problem of our society relying on petrochemicals. We can change that, and we have to change that. And in order to change that, we have to learn how to make all those chemicals we need as a society using biology. And that's what this technology is going to do.
Kate, I think it's fascinating, and I also just have to say thank you. I'm a dad to a girl age 14 who all the time hears from me, STEM careers, women in science. It's nice to see you there at the helm of such an amazing cutting-edge technology. We appreciate you so much. Have a good day. We'll be tracking this.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead on CBS News 24/7.
Thank you. Well, I know the clip is lengthy, but it's that important. This is a major breakthrough. The University of Minnesota should be so proud, and we will be hearing a lot about this. This will be one of the biggest breakthroughs in the University of Minnesota. I hope there'll be many more of that quality, but this is a big deal. And so we are so proud of Dr. Amidala, Dr. Aaron Engelhardt, and their teams for this breakthrough innovation and for the reputational halo it creates for the university. I want to share with you a recent survey found nearly 2/3 of Minnesotans and 8 in 10 of Minnesota leaders have a favorable and improved impression of the university. That public trust is earned not only through our academic excellence, but also through this kind of groundbreaking research. What a bright and shining example of the excellence of the University of Minnesota. When it comes to the questions I field as a president, one topic that people ask me a lot about is artificial intelligence, so I just want to talk briefly about our work on AI. As you know, to meet this moment, we've launched a university-wide AI hub led by Galen Jones, our inaugural Vice Provost of Artificial Intelligence. Over the past few months, Dr. Jones and his team have been working a lot. They've convened groups of Minnesota business and government leaders and partners across the country to work on realizing the opportunities that AI presents and also to deal with the challenges. Those opportunities include building a more resilient workforce, rethinking education, and ensuring ethical and sustainable AI guardrails are in place. They've partnered with local Fortune 500 companies to prepare their teams for this shift. They've worked with university staff and faculty to boost AI literacy on campus across Minnesota and nationally, and they've begun work on a university-wide AI blueprint. What's exciting about all of this is that we're not just reacting to the changing landscape of higher education, we're actively, intentionally shaping it. By ensuring our students and citizens can ethically, responsibly, and effectively utilize these tools, we are helping shape a future where Minnesota leads the nation in technological adoption. In the months ahead, we will continue to advance our Elevate Extraordinary 2030 roadmap across all 5 of our campuses, and we'll continue to work together as one university on 5 campuses, modernizing our student experience and investing in a long-term strategic vision. Because it's summer, I should also mention that we're having some good old-fashioned fun. The College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Sciences recently held up a competition to come up with a new ice cream flavor. Regent Mohammed and I had the opportunity firsthand to taste test these, and I would say all 5 flavors were and finalists were pretty delicious. Beginning mid-August, the winning flavor will be available in Goldie's Game Room and the Gopher Spot at the Arboretum. Until then, my lips are sealed. Before I wrap up, I want to recognize again Mary Holtz-Kloss, who's retiring as Chancellor at our Crookston campus at the end of the year. Under Mary's leadership, the University of Minnesota Crookston's national reputation for innovation, online education, sustainability, and rural engagement rose, and the campus achieved a record enrollment growth. I want to thank you, Mary, as your announcement came just this last month for a well-deserved retirement for all that you've done in your remarkable career, 40-year career in higher education. I want to again thank Chancellor Nees, who beginning in January will serve in the interim role of Chancellor across the University of Minnesota, while maintaining his role as Chancellor at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Finally, I want to share my gratitude with Joanne Billings, who has served as our interim Vice President for Research and Innovation. Joanne has done a wonderful job, and we are looking forward to welcoming Cynthia Carnes, who will join us as VPR at the end of this month. Chair Hipsch, that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Regent Bergstrom?
Just one, echo all those thanks, but one question mainly, I guess, for Board Secretary Steves. Up until today, I've had great faith in how you all choose regents to go on various expeditions. I'm curious how this decision to include Regent Mohammed and none of the rest of us on this ice cream expedition was done.
Mr. Chair and Regent Bergstrom, we would prefer not to reveal our methods and.
I think a bunch of us were wondering the same thing, so we should probably take it up at our retreat. Huh?
And I would just briefly say, Regent Bergstrom, it helps to be an alum of the college. So.
It's an additional plus.
I'm an alum of the college. Oh, wow.
There might be favorites, Chair. I don't know.
Okay, turning to my report, I will note that we will depart for our retreat after this meeting adjourns. During that time, as is our practice each July, the board will collaborate with the president to begin mapping out our priorities for the coming academic year. Those priorities will be shared in the fall and posted on the board's websites. As we start this new academic year and continue to mark the university's 175th anniversary, we look forward to our work ahead in the changing and evolving landscape of higher education. And I look forward to engaging with Minnesotans from across the state at upcoming county fairs and the Great Minnesota Get-Together later this summer. That concludes my report. Item number 6 is the receive and file reports, which includes the virtual forum comments. Please note these comments are included in the docket materials. For our 7th item, let me welcome Director of Athletics for the Duluth campus, Forrest Carr, to share the annual report on UMD athletics. Before we turn to our presenter, I'll invite Duluth Campus Chancellor Charles Neese to provide some comments.
I think I'm start. I think I was.
Pardon me?
Chair Hips, may I just say a
Sure,
comment first? And then we'll have the Chancellor jump in. So I'll thank you again, Chair Hips. Before we get started, I want to thank Athletic Director Coyle for his leadership and his commitment. Oh, this is the wrong one. Boy, I don't, the coffee today is just, it's not kicked in. That is my next one. So I will have you thank your Athletic Director. Thank you so much.
Chair Hips, thank you for having us at the table. One of the pieces that I wanted to highlight is that with Division I athletics, it is a best practice that we update the board on a regular basis of the workings of our athletic programs. And so today you'll hear from both of the D1 programs in the University of Minnesota. But I also wanted to take a moment and thank you, the board, for previously this spring having approved the extension of the contract for our athletic director, Director Carr. We are so fortunate to have Director Carr leading our athletic program at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Max Plant and the Hobie Baker Award is just one example of his leadership that he has provided. As a rock star student goalie, as an undergraduate, a coach, as well as someone with a legal background, he is really poised to help lead our university. And he brings a calm, thoughtful approach, a commitment to equity and excellence, and is constantly placing our scholar athletes first in the decision-making that we do at the university. He leads with integrity and curiosity, and we are so fortunate to be able to have him as a leader of our athletic program. He is the reason why we're here today and learning more about our athletic programs. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Carr.
Thank you, Chancellor Neese. Chair Hips and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on the University of Minnesota Duluth Department of Athletics. Get started, I thought it'd be important to just talk a little bit about the conferences that we participate in. I think in college athletics, you're only as strong as the group of peers that you affiliate with, and we're very fortunate to be members of some very strong conferences. So I put some graphics here. First, women's hockey, we're members of the Western Collegiate Hockey Association. That conference has won 22 out of 25 NCAA championships, including UMD, which has earned 5 NCAA national championships. Next, our Division II sports participate in the Northern Sun Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. That's a group of 16 schools. It's one of the strongest Division II conferences in the country. It's been a great fit for the University of Minnesota Duluth, including football national championships, 2 of them. Next is our men's hockey program, participates in the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, the NCHC. Schools in that conference have won 8 of the last 10 NCAA championships, including UMD's championships in 2018 and 2019. We recently welcomed the University of St. Thomas, so they're the most recent school to join. They'll become the 10th member, and they begin conference competition this fall. First, we'll start with our academic accomplishments of UMD student athletes. It was a great year academically. In the fall of 2025, student athletes across the department had earned a 3.51 grade point average. At the time, that was the highest grade point average in our department's history. Each team finished the year with over a 3.3 grade point average. And then leading into spring of 2026, so we had a student athlete GPA of 3.53, which was the highest in the department's history. And again, each of the teams earned over a 3.3 grade point average. So a real testament to the work that our coaches do and administrators and the student athletes for focusing on academics first. A few of the individual accomplishments listed here. The different conferences have all academic teams, academic all conference. In hockey, we had 10 academic All-Americans. One metric that's used in Division II, it's called the academic success rate. Across the board, our department was at 90%. That is a 6-year graduation rate that includes transfer students. So if a student transfers out of the university, transfers somewhere else and earns their degree within 6 years, that is not counted against the school that they left. So you're not penalized when a student leaves in good academic standing. See, the national average is 77%, and our university is at 90%, so we're very proud of that. And then in our Division I programs, they use a different type of metric where each student can be assigned 2 points each semester, 1 for being eligible and 1 for being retained or graduating. They use that as a measure of eligibility, retention, and graduation. So we were at a 994 for women's hockey and 984 for men's hockey. We had a student athlete, Elizabeth Van Loon, who earned the NSIC Willis R. Kelly Scholar Athlete Award for academic excellence. So that was one female student athlete out of all the female student athletes in the Northern Sun Conference. So again, that's 16 schools, about 3,000 female student athletes, and she was named the top student athlete in the entire conference. We also had the Outstanding Student Athlete of the Year for the WCHA, the Women's Hockey Conference. And we had 3 student athletes that were presented awards by the NSIC for having the highest cumulative GPA in their sport: Elizabeth Van Loon, Kate Fitzgerald, and Deshawn Ames. Competition this past year, 2025-26, there were 5 Bulldog teams ranked in the top 25 nationally and 3 others that received votes during the year. Football earned their first outright NSIC regular season championship since 2012. Women's basketball earned the NCAA Central Region Championship and advanced to the Elite 8. That was the second time in program history. Men's basketball earned the NSIC Tournament Championship for the first time since 2003. That was really exciting. They knocked off the number 3 seed, and then the number 2 seed, and then the number 1 seed to win the conference tournament championship, qualify for the NCAA tournament, and then they advanced to the NCAA tournament Sweet 16, and that was also the second time in program history. Women's hockey qualified for their 6th consecutive NCAA tournament, and men's hockey advanced to the regional finals of the NCAA tournament, and Max Plant earned the Hobie Baker Award. And I'd like to thank all of you for recognizing Max and his commitment and dedication to the university. Next is our community service. UMD student athletes continue to make a difference in the community with over 3,000 hours of community engagement each year. One particular point of pride in recent years, our Student Athlete Advisory Committee partnered with something called the National Marrow Donor Program, and our athletic department had the highest number of registered donors of any school in the Midwest. That's across Division I, Division II, and Division III programs. We've actually had 3 student athletes: football student athlete Curtis Cox, men's basketball Owen Leach, and football Brian Kahns have each saved a life since 2023 directly. So there's been a lot of stories written about that by the NCAA and other media outlets. Just recently, we entered an Adopt a Block partnership with the city of Duluth. So when our student athletes get back this fall, they're going to be responsible for taking care of a block with downtown Duluth. So that's a partnership with a nonprofit called Downtown Duluth, and also with the city of Duluth. We also prioritize bringing large events to the city. So in 2026, this last spring, we hosted the Outdoor Track and Field Championships for the NSIC, and we will be hosting this coming March, the 2027 NCAA Women's Frozen Four. There's a photo there on the slide. We recently hosted our 5th annual Sophie Squad Mental Health Awareness Game, and Sophie's Squad was a nonprofit that was co-founded by a former UMD All-American and Hockey Humanitarian Award winner, Gabby Hughes, who now plays in the PWHL, but that has continued and has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for mental health for youth. A slide here about checks and balances and our culture of compliance. Each year, we fill out the EADA report, and that is submitted, and it's a public document, tracks participation in athletically related financial aid. I think more importantly than the report is just that our staff are mindful of both the letter and the spirit of Title IX and gender equity. We have an athletics committee that meets monthly and advises the chancellor on matters related to athletics. Our UMD faculty athletics representative, Katie Schofield, serves as a member of that committee, as well as the gender equity subcommittee and compliance committee. And there is a specific bylaw, 20.5.4, that says that at least once every 4 years, an active multi-divisional institution must engage in a compliance review conducted by an outside authority. So that's how we are classified. We're a multi-divisional athletic department, so both a mix of Division II and Division I sports. So we were recently up for that once every 4 year review, and we had an outside company called Double L Consulting that completed and submitted that compliance review. What's next for UMD athletics? As you know, there are a lot of things changing in intercollegiate athletics. So one area is third-party name, image, and likeness compensation. So we have a partnership with a collective called the 218 Champions Collective that's set up similar to Dinkytown Athletics here in the cities. We often refer to things as true NIL, so third-party NIL compensation. These are for genuine market-driven brand endorsements. So an example, last week I had a local bank president in Duluth who asked about the possibility of putting UMD student athletes up on a billboard. I then connected him with the student athletes, and if there's an agreement reached, then we will track that pursuant to the requirements of the NCAA. Most of our name, image, and likeness deals are small things, so it might be that a dentist provides services free of charge. It might be a kennel allowing student athletes to leave their dog for the weekend while they're out of town. Might be restaurants allowing the student athletes to eat. And so those are things that are examples of true NIL. And then we are working to move toward revenue sharing for our Division I sports in the fall of 2007. So that's 2027, excuse me. As far as sports sponsorship, we're going to continue to monitor gender equity and the impacts of the changing intercollegiate athletics landscape. What I mean by that is nationally there's sort of a trend with fewer males attending college, and that changes the makeup or the demographics of your university for full-time degree-seeking students. And we have to monitor that so that we know what sports we're going to be able to offer and if we have to adjust anything. And then facilities-wise, we are looking at trying to move softball. It's in a far corner of campus, hoping to move that closer to our other athletic facilities, and that can open up some opportunities for other areas of campus as well. I think that's my report. We have a picture there of our new women's basketball head coach, Brooke Olson, who was a former student athlete at UMD, former National Player of the Year in Division II. She worked down here as a graduate student under Dawn for a year, and then was most recently at UW Stout. And we hired Brooke this spring, and we're very excited about her future with the department. We also recently hired Brett Jensen as the director of our cross-country and track and field program. Think she's going to do a great job. We are just about finished with a women's softball head coaching search. So those are some things that are in the future for us. So with that, I would open it up for any questions, and thank you.
Thank you for your report. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. And I just once again wanted to commend Director Carr on running such outstanding athletic programs at the University of Minnesota Duluth. And I'm in Duluth right now, and these student athletes and are a huge part of the community, and now this is entertainment for Duluth. This is not only entertainment; it's also growing up here, going to a UMD hockey game on the weekend was what we did. There's UMD football and all these other sports, and just have to commend you on the fantastic year you've had in football, women's basketball, men's basketball, women's hockey, men's hockey, and the amazing academic achievements of the student athletes and the community achievements you just went through, which a lot of which I wasn't aware of. But these young people are an important part of life in Duluth, and I want to thank you for your leadership, and especially as a former UMD prof, on these kids come to class, they're into it, they're well prepared, and they're totally engaged in their sports and in athletics and the community. So for that, I just wanted to offer my sincere appreciation, and obviously with all the accolades that all the Hobie Baker Award winners over the years. And I'm glad we renewed Coach Sandlin's contract today. And I just wanted to thank you for all you're doing for the community. So thank you.
Thank you for the kind words, Regent Johnson.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and thank you, Director Carr and Chancellor Nees for being here. It's really nice to get a sense of kind of the full picture of Duluth athletics. One question I did have, especially as you talked through revenue sharing, sponsorships, NIL, what support is Duluth providing or thinking about providing to these student athletes, especially as they individually go about negotiating these NIL deals, these relationships, to not only to make sure that they're maximizing what they are able to get out of a relationship, but also to make sure that their legal rights are being protected, those types of things. It's a weird world in that we as the university can't individually represent each of them, but also it's important that they find ways to have access to legal representation or advice on what they should be considering as they're entering into some of these deals.
Chair Hipsch and Regent Verhalen, thank you for the question.
It was 15 questions in one.
One incredible resource that some people might not know about is here at the University of Minnesota Law School. There's a clinic, an NIL clinic in place that does provide free services to review any agreements that student athletes might be presented with. So when they have an opportunity with an external third party, that is a place that we can direct them. And those are 2L and 3L law students that are doing that pro bono so that the student athletes don't incur any costs in that type of review. So the University of Minnesota was actually a pioneer in that space, and it was the first clinic set up like that in the country. And so we're really fortunate to have that as a resource. As far as the actual revenue sharing from the university, so not the third party NIL, but the revenue sharing space, the rules have changed significantly in recent years. So a scholarship used to be tuition fees, room, board, books. Then that was changed to include cost of attendance. Then in 2021 with the Supreme Court Alston decision, that included up to $5,980 for academic achievement. And now you have the revenue sharing opportunities. And so we are at a space right now where we are offering the academic achievement awards, and those are still treated like scholarships for the student athletes. So our next step then would be to move into the revenue sharing space, and we're looking toward fall of 2027 to make that shift. So.
Thank you. Any further question? Any other discussion? Well, I want to thank you for. Go ahead.
I'm just so proud to be a Bulldog. So thank you for all you're doing and all you're doing for the athletes. You're doing it the right way here at Duluth, and we're really proud.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now turn to the annual report on the Twin Cities Athletics. Presenting this item is Athletics Director Mark Coyle, and President Cunningham. Would you like to introduce this item?
I think I've introduced it 3 times, Chair Hipsch, but I will now thank Athletic Director Coyle for his leadership and commitment to our student athletes and to the University of Minnesota. During his tenure over the last decade, the landscape of college athletics has shifted just everything dramatically and continues to evolve at a breakneck pace. Through conference realignments, the transfer portal, the rise of NIL, AD Coyle's steady hand and student-first approach have kept not only our teams competitive, but have kept us thriving as a national model for athletic and academic balance. As you'll hear, we have much to celebrate on and off the field, and we're very grateful to him at the helm, and also just for, we are in the news for all the right things in our athletic department, and I am just thrilled about that. Thank you.
All right, good morning, Chair Hipsch, and thank you, President Cunningham, and I'm totally okay if you keep thanking me, so I appreciate that. I do want to take a second. We have a video I'd like to show just kind of highlighting Gopher Athletics for the past year, but I do want to recognize Forrest. When I got to Minnesota almost 11 years ago, I went up to Duluth and spent some time with them. That athletic department has a great history of academic athletic success. When Forrest was hired, I had a chance to go back up there and spend some time with him, but congratulations to Forrest and their great accomplishments. We have a great working relationship, a great partnership, and a lot of respect for what they do. And obviously, when we play them in hockey, we want to beat them, but we have a lot of respect for them. So with that, Skeeter, if you could cue up a video to highlight Gopher Athletics this past year.
A 15-foot baseline jumper is good! The Gophers are going to Sacramento! The first Sweet 16 since 2005. He's got a breakaway now for Zimmer. He scores! Oh, what a fabulous goal! It's a cold, crisp November day in Minnesota. Big-time Big Ten border battle. Has time toward the end zone. Gears there! He has it! Touchdown, Jamison Gears! The axe is in hand. It stays where it belongs.
He's just had a run this freshman season.
They get to punch their ticket to the national championship. Right to center. Jordan pulls it in. Scores! Home run for Tinley Easton. You are a Big Ten champion.
I am a Big Ten champion.
Go 248 feet, 7 inches, and take the victories.
The Golden Gophers are here, and they want everybody to know.
How about the Golden Gophers?
Minnesota advanced to the NCAA final.
Hands in the air for Max McAnally and all of the Gophers. Here's your 184-pound champion.
The skill of Abby Murphy, one of the best in the world.
Point you, match you, ball game. To overtime we go. Throws toward the end zone. It is a diving attempt and caught! Touchdown! Jalen Smith! Off the block for Minnesota. Pittsburgh, here come the Gophers! And it's gone! Godfred wins it for Minnesota.
Championship winning time.
Driven into the box. Birdsell flicks it on, and it's in. Minnesota has taken the lead. Now to Tyson, wide open three. For the third time this season, the Gophers with a court storm and the win on Michigan State. And coming in, he scores! The Gophers win the shootout. Halski, could this be the dagger? Yes, it is!
Hot diggity dog to this team. Wow. Minnesota Golden Gophers upset the Hawkeyes.
Great save by Sarah Morton.
I love those videos because we look undefeated, which is awesome. So, all right, and I will do the quick presentation. So, a quick update on the state of Gopher Athletics. As you all know, we have 22 sport programs and 600 plus student athletes. We are a proud founding member of the Big Ten Conference, which was founded in 1896. We provide resource for mental, physical, and social growth for all of our student athletes. Academic excellence, similar to Duluth. We had a semester grade point average of 3.44. Our cumulative GPA is a 3.48, which was a school record. And it's important to note that we're one of the top performing public schools in the country with respect to student athlete success. We talk about broad-based athletic success. We finished 32nd out of 301 universities in the Learfield Directors Cup, which puts Minnesota in the top 10.6% nationally. So again, we're doing the right things the right way academically, athletically, and socially. The state of college athletics, I was joking with Vice Chair Wheelers. We were coming up on the elevator this morning. It's not gray, it's charcoal. There's a lot of changes going on in college athletics right now. Obviously, the power conferences, the Big Ten with 18 schools and the SEC with 16 are the two most prominent and influential conferences in college athletics. I remind our staff, our student athletes, our fans, and our coaches daily that being in the Big Ten is a blessing, not a burden. Navigation, we are partnering with the Big Ten, obviously, but we continue to remain nimble to adjust to the evolving landscape of college athletics. Modernization, we embrace innovation, and we are trying to maximize financial capabilities. I joke, I heard a line a long time ago that money's not the most important thing in college athletics, but it's right up there with oxygen. I've never forgot that line, so we have to be creative to grow our revenue streams to meet the pressures that we're facing. Revenue sharing, we successfully managed $20.5 million in distribution to our student athletes this past year. And if you recall, we rev shared with football, both basketball programs, our volleyball program, and our men's hockey program. In addition, we added scholarships to soccer, softball, gymnastics, and those programs, and swimming and diving, and that counted towards that $20.5 million rev share cap. In terms of NIL, we feel like we are a national leader and are very compliant with College Sports Commission. You've heard me talk about the importance of doing things right in the state of Minnesota. Our student athletes, if they have an external NIL deal that is $600 or greater, they have to disclose that to CSC for approval, and we are sharing our deals with CSC and getting approval for those deals. Collectives, we still work closely with Dingytown athletes. It's still a critical piece of our success, and I can honestly tell you that we're probably one of a handful of collectives that have never missed a payment to a student athlete. Thanks to Doug Peterson and OGC, when we started to develop Dingytown athletes, we talked about having the money first before those promises were made to student athletes. So again, we're operating in a very efficient and fair and truthful manner with our student athletes. National visibility, events broadcast on ABC, Fox, NBC, CBS, the Big Ten Network, ESPN, ESPN2, Fox Sports 1, CBS Sports Network, Peacock, and of course the Gopher Radio Network. It gives us a chance to showcase the university's vision of excellence in helping unify, engage communities across Minnesota. Gophersports.com ranks in the top 10 in page views nationally of schools that use industry leader Sidearm Sports as the website provider. You can see on the gold box, we've had 535 million social media impressions. That's just over a 10-month period. 80,000 new followers, 2.55 total followers, 16 million engagements, and over 85 million video views. So obviously our program has a lot of visibility that we can showcase our great institution. We feel like we are the school's most prominent and visible department and one of its strongest marketing tools. We play a significant role in advancing institutional priorities with student recruitment, enrollment, retention, and experience. We increase the national brand visibility and strengthen reputation, steward philanthropy efforts, and enhance fundraising through Gopher Athletics. And it's an avenue to engage the alumni and provide statewide connection working with Lisa Lewis and her team. Athletics generates $473.7 million annually in economic impact in Minnesota and brings more than $1.3 million to campus each year. Nearly 4,000 jobs in Minnesota are supported by the impact of Gopher Athletics. We deliver $50 million in annual revenue and payments to the university. And during the last 3 years, we hosted an average of 400 non-athletic events per year, plus daily public ice and tennis court usage. Academic success, it breaks my heart, but I feel like we spend less and less time talking about academic success. But we take great pride in making sure when we recruit a young woman or young man to come to our campus that they will earn a degree from a world-class institution. Our graduation success rate is at 93%. Minnesota has recorded the 8th highest GSRs in school history during the last 8 years. Academic progress rate, 17 of our programs have a perfect APR score. 7 programs have a perfect score multi-year rate. Academic all Big Ten, we have 360 student athletes. Big Ten Distinguished Scholars, 126. Academic All-Americans, 98 college sports communicators. Communicators Academic All-American since 2016-17. That ranks 10th all-time with 226 CSC Academic All-Americans. Academic All-District, we have 336 CSC Academic All-District honorees since 2016-17. So again, our student athletes are doing wonderful things in the classroom. Athletic accomplishments, we clearly get that we are evaluated externally by our wins and losses. We had 4 NCAA champions this past year, Antoinette in indoor track and field, Max in wrestling, Brooklyn in gymnastics, and Angelos in outdoor track and field. So again, wanted to recognize our 4 individual national champions. And then Big Ten titles, we had several student athletes who won Big Ten titles. I won't go through all the names, but you can see, again, our broad-based success and our broad-based programs from swimming and diving, gymnastics, outdoor track and field, where our student athletes did wonderful things and won Big Ten championships this past year. Team excellence, our Spirit Squad, we are so grateful for our Spirit Squad, and they continue to be one of the best in the country. They won national titles in dance and in small co-ed game day cheer. Of course, women's basketball went 24-9. We hosted the NCAA tournament and advanced to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2005. Gymnastics finished 4th at NCAA finals after beating the number 4, number 5, number 9, and number 12 teams seeds to advance to Fort Worth. Football went 8-5. We won the Rate Bowl to extend its Big Ten record to 9 straight bowl wins, which is phenomenal. It's actually the longest bowl winning streak in the country. Volleyball went 24-10. We hosted the NCAA tournament and advanced to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2022. And then we had several programs that finished in the top 20, wrestling at 9th, women's swimming and diving 16th, men's track and field 18th, and women's track and field 20th. So again, another stellar year for our student athletes as they competed for us. Winter Olympic success, we feel like this is a great way to showcase our institution and the great things that our student athletes, both former and current student athletes, are doing. Then student athlete Abby Murphy and alums Taylor Heisey, Grace Zumwinkle, Kelly Panic, and Lee Steckline led Team USA to a gold medal in women's hockey. Alums Brock Faber and Jackson Lacombe helped Team USA win the gold medal in men's hockey for the first time since 1980. We thought this was a great stat to just show the visibility of what Gopher Athletics can do for our institution. The university's LinkedIn post congratulating the women's team had more than 6,100 reactions and 200 reposts, making it the university's most responded to posts to date in 2026. On the world stage, Minnesota had 16th athletes at the Winter Olympics, which were the most in the Big Ten Conference. Alum Eric Hola earned a bronze medal with Finland in men's hockey. And then we highlighted 4 alums who participated in curling for Team USA, but were not Gopher student athletes. Community impact and exposure. And President Cunningham, I want to recognize you. Thank you for being at women's basketball games. Good shout out there, high-fiving our team after a big win. But in the community and impact exposure, Team Impact, several programs work with Team Impact, and Minnesota was named the Team Impact Division I Fellowship Campus of the Year. Supporting the community, football has donated more than 140,000 diapers to the Diaper Bank of Minnesota in the last 10 years. We'll host its 10th annual turkey drive this November. Sky You Must Strong, head coach Medved, when his first year when he came here, he launched Sky You Must Strong, which is our men's basketball program, which supports cancer patients and survivors from Masonic Children's Hospital. Of course, we hosted Farm Aid last summer, which brought tens of thousands of music fans to campus for a festival that highlighted awareness to the agricultural system. We hosted the World Junior Championships in 3M Arena at Mariucci, 13 games, teams all over the world, and it again showcased the University of Minnesota to a worldwide audience. We just recently hosted the Special Olympics USA Games, which was athletic competition and a celebration of more than 3,000 athletes from all 50 states that we just hosted this past month. Continue with our community impact and exposure as we try to get creative to generate new revenue streams. We had the Thomas O. Moe Director of Athletics, which is the first named position in Gopher Athletics, which honors the late Tom Moe, who is a former Minnesota student athlete and administrator. The naming was accompanied by an anonymous gift dedicated to advancing athletics and enhancing the student athlete experience for all 22 sports programs. We recently announced a new partnership with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. The Barn, which again, we partnered with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota and named the home of Gopher basketball, The Barn, by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. This 10-year collaboration strengthens a dedication to advancing community health and connection throughout Minnesota. We also wanted to highlight, we hired a few new head coaches this year. In women's hockey, we hired Greg Boom May. If you call him Greg, he won't respond, so please call him Boom. His mom said he was a kicker when he was being born, so we have Boom. He was named head coach on March 22nd, associate head coach at Minnesota since 2023. He helped the Gophers advance to the 2025 NCAA Frozen Four and to the NCAA tournament in 24, 25, and 26. He coached the men's team at Augsburg from 21 to 23 and led them to the NCAA tournament both years and to the Frozen Four in 2022. He was an assistant coach on the 2026 USA Women's Under-18 national team that won gold. We hired Brett Larson in men's hockey. He was named head coach on March 24th. He has 16 years of collegiate experience coming to Minnesota from St. Cloud State, where he served as the head coach from 2018 to 26. He led St. Cloud State to 4 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 conference championships, and the program's first ever national championship game appearance. Brett is a graduate of Minnesota Duluth. He was an assistant coach for the Bulldogs from 2008 to 11 and 2015 to 18, and helped lead them to the NCAA titles in 2011 and 2018. So we're very excited to welcome Coach Larson. And then finally, we just recently hired Greta Melstead for our softball position. She was named head coach this past May. She spent 20 seasons at Augustana, where she built one of the premier Division II softball programs in the country. She guided Augustana to an 8-13, 3-13 record, 14 NCAA tournament appearances, and the 2019 National Championship. She was inducted into the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame back in December of 2024. So we're really excited to welcome our new coaches, and I'm thankful for President Cunningham as she helped us go through those search processes to land 3 very qualified candidates. So with that, I am happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Athletic Director Coyle, and thank you for all you do for the program. This is really great stats. Along with Duluth, I'm very proud of Minnesota Athletics and the student athlete experience and the scholarship that you bring, and just the way the athletes conduct themselves. And I know that starts at the top, so I really appreciate that. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch and Director Coyle, Athletic Director Coyle. Something that we breeze past in both of these presentations is both Duluth Athletics and Twin Cities Athletics have their highest records in school history on GPA. And that is a commitment by every student athlete. They go out and they win a national championship over the weekend and then show up to class on Monday. Or the night before and then show up to class the next day. What are you seeing as pushing that success, in addition to, as Chair Hipsch said, from support from the top and each of the dedication of the student athletes, but what is bringing that culture and support to Twin Cities Athletics right now to continue pushing that higher and higher?
Okay, Chair Hipsch and Regent Verhalen, thank you for the question. I do appreciate you hitting pause on that, because we do go over that very quickly. And again, Duluth, the academic success they have, and here at Minnesota. And I would say 2 things. So obviously, college athletics is going through these transformative changes. We talk to our coaches, to our student athletes all the time that we will continue to make value-based decisions for the Gophers, in terms of we promise kids an education. We're going to continue to follow that value that we say we're going to graduate from this great institution. We have a wonderful partnership with Provost Ritter, the Lindahl Academic Center. JT Brewitt and his staff do a phenomenal job. That unit actually reports up to Provost Ritter and the academic side of the institution, and they do a wonderful job supporting our student athletes. Also, a lot of credit goes to our head coaches and our sport administrators, because we talk all the time, when you recruit a young woman or a young man to come to Minnesota and to compete, they got to be able to compete in the classroom too. And so it really is a philosophy that is built all the way through the fiber of the department. But we'll continue to work with Provost Ritter, with JT Brewitt and the Lindahl Academic Center to make sure we continue to enhance and develop that academic expertise that we provide to our student athletes, because it is dramatically different with the amount of transfers coming into your program, and making sure you meet their academic needs and meet them where they're at as they come into our program. Again, making sure they understand that they're coming into a very competitive academic program as well.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that, but also just wanted to take the opportunity to pass on to the athletics department, to any student athlete or head coach or assistant coach who's listening. Great appreciation for the community focus of these student athletes and of Gopher Athletics. I've had the absolute pleasure to watch very candid interactions between student athletes and fans, kids, hospital patients. And the genuineness is definitely noted. It's not a put on, it's not a performance. Even in the moments when the camera is not on them, they are genuinely good humans. So really appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any comments or discussion? If not, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is a report on the alumni engagement across the university. Let me welcome our presenters for this item. University of Minnesota Alumni Association President and CEO Lisa Lewis, Regent Emeritus and Duluth Campus graduate Mike Kenyanya, and I had this great opportunity to get a dig in. I couldn't think of anything. Actually, I couldn't limit it down to one thing. So
There you go.
anyways, so I'm not going to say anything. But Crookston campus graduate Jess Bankson, Morris campus graduate Randy Koopman, who's joining us virtually, and Twin Cities campus graduate Nadia Hassan. And while not able to join us, we'll hear from Rochester campus graduate Rachel Seisler. With that, President and CEO Lisa Lewis, would you like to start us off? Sorry.
Good morning, Chair Hipsch, members of the board, and President Cunningham. We're pleased to be here with you today to share the impact of alumni on the university community. 1 year ago, at the July Board of Regents meeting in Crookston, the Alumni Association and the alumni relations staff from the Crookston, Duluth, Rochester, and Morris campuses jointly presented to you. We shared our intent to explore how we could build stronger relationships with alumni across all 5 campuses. And we've worked really hard over the last year, and today I am joined by alumni representing each campus. These fantastic alumni leaders provided indispensable perspectives that shaped this work. And we were supported every step of the way by President Cunningham and the chancellors who provided valuable insight and wisdom. Our collective work leads us on an exciting journey to tap the full talent and potential of alumni as one of the university's largest constituencies. And that potential impact is growing. There are now more than 650,000 living alumni around the world. And 62% of that group still calls Minnesota home. Whether they live in the state, across the country, or around the world, we will continue to connect them in ways that are meaningful to them and impactful to the university, just like they've been doing for nearly 175 years. Today's presentation is about the potential impact of one alumni community across 5 campuses. Our vision is that all alumni champion the University of Minnesota, the value of a U of M education, and the distinct strengths of each campus. At its core, this work is about strengthening lifelong relationships. Relationships that can last over 80 years, we all hope. It's one generation building for the next. And that network is about to get better connected across the campuses. Now, you may be wondering, why now? What's driving this work? Well, 4 factors really came together. First, Elevate Extraordinary 2030 calls on alumni to play a much larger role in advancing the university's priorities, from enrollment and reputation to student success, and so much more. Second, the System Optimization Work Group is looking at opportunities to strengthen student experiences across the campuses. So as students graduate with experiences from multiple campuses, we want to welcome them into one alumni community. This framework is future-focused and a natural extension of the university's plans. Third, alumni, staff, and university leaders have consistently shared that our current approach to alumni engagement is a bit confusing. Alumni aren't sure what services and what events are available to them. And finally, we all know that higher education is facing tremendous change. At a time when there are questions about the value of a college degree, along with enrollment, economic, and policy pressures, the alumni can bring an important voice to the mix as champions of the university. These 4 factors led us to ask one question: how can we better engage alumni while preserving what makes each campus unique? To answer that question, we started by asking alumni and listening. We formed an alumni advisory committee that brought different experiences, traditions, and perspectives, but they all shared one goal: strengthening alumni engagement across the university. Their insights became the foundation for the work you see today, and were refined by feedback from more than 100 listening sessions with alumni, students, faculty, and university leaders. I'm so proud to have the alumni leaders joining me today. Jess, Mike, and Nadia are here in person. Randy is on Zoom, and Rachel has provided a recorded video. Because she couldn't join us today, she's recently welcomed a new baby into her family. So the fact that she was able to pull off a video is very impressive to me. As we listened to the Alumni Advisory Committee and the many stakeholders, 6 themes emerged. Together, they became the foundation for the framework you'll see today. First, alumni have an incredibly strong sense of pride and connection to their home campus. Second, alumni have low visibility to the campus strengths and assets of the other campuses that are not their home campus. Third, alumni are unsure if they are welcome to events and programs that are happening on campuses that weren't their own home campus. Fourth, alumni engage when opportunities are relevant, meaningful, and personally inviting. Fifth, access to alumni programs, services, and volunteer opportunities are currently inconsistent across the experiences of all 5 campus alumni groups. And finally, our alumni relations professionals need the shared tools, data, and coordination to serve the alumni more effectively. Those themes not only shaped the framework, but they also revealed how we can engage more alumni across the university. And that matters because alumni are not simply connecting to the university, they're moving it forward. Our alumni engagement work is strategically focused on moving the university forward in 6 very specific ways. Strengthening the university's reputation by serving as loud and proud ambassadors and champions for the university. Impacting student success by opening doors for career exploration. Securing legislative support by building relationships with policymakers and advocating for the university's priorities. Creating a sense of community and belonging that lasts a lifetime. With their volunteer spirit, bringing their talents and industry perspective to the table, expanding the university's capacity and reach into external communities. And investing generously in the university's future. In FY25 alone, alumni contributed more than $190 million to the university, representing 41% of all donors and, coincidentally, 41% of all giving. When the entire alumni community comes together, they can be a powerful force for good. The One Alumni Community 5 Campus Framework is our strategy for building that force for good. It was designed to preserve what already works while expanding on what's possible. The full framework is included in your docket materials, but today I'd like to highlight 3 guiding principles. First, campus traditions and alumni engagement programs will continue to remain campus-led. This framework expands the menu and programs available to alumni. It's additive. Second, campus-based alumni relations staff remain exactly that, campus-based. They'll continue leading the campus relationships while we collectively work as one alumni relations team. And finally, this framework builds on the pride alumni have for their campuses, while making it easier for graduates to connect and volunteer across the entire university. Alumni don't have to choose between their affiliation and pride in their own campus and their connection to the larger university. This framework supports both. So you've now heard why we began this work, what we've learned through a year of listening, and how those insights shaped our framework. But now let's hear directly from the alumni who helped build it. To begin, it's my pleasure to introduce Regent Emeritus Mike Kenyanya, a proud graduate of the University of Minnesota, Duluth.
Thank you, Lisa. Chair Hebsch, members of the board, President Cunningham. It's a pleasure to be here. It's much better on this side. We began our work with a shared principle that even as we bring alumni together, it was very important to honor, respect, and elevate campus traditions. That matters deeply to UMD alumni in particular, who are loud and unapologetic in their campus pride. That campus pride comes alive through traditions such as Bulldogs on the Block. These gatherings in communities across the country build connections amongst alumni, but also give them an opportunity to engage back and give their time, service, and engagement to their university. The framework does not seek to replace, but rather elevate these opportunities. Under the One Alumni framework, we can celebrate what makes UMD special with more of our friends and family. For example, my twin cousins, Rachel and Sylvia, graduated from the School of Nursing on this campus just a couple months ago. Regent Turner conferred their degrees. Now, they've heard all my stories about the good old days in Duluth and the legendary 8 roommates of 1825 Woodland Avenue. But since we are all now in the same M-shaped alumni tent, I can bring Rachel and Sylvia to events. They can finally put faces to these names they've heard about. And the faces behind the stories. And why? This is because Rachel, Sylvia, and Mike are all now one alumni. It also means that more alumni will discover the remarkable work happening at UMD. Consider UMD's freshwater research, which has been marked as a key early action under Imperative 4 of the strategic plan. Much of that work happens on the Blue Heron, the university's research vessel. And the Blue Heron brings this discovery to communities across the Great Lakes. A couple of years ago, she was in Ohio. What the framework is saying is that next time the Blue Heron is in Chicago, we want all U of M grads, regardless of campus, to know about that opportunity, to know they're welcome on board, and to come learn about the great work happening at UMD. This framework also lets Bulldog alumni connect with all university grads around shared interests, experiences, and industries through the Alumni Association's affinity and professional networks. Now, my friend Isaac, a UMD electrical engineering grad, can now be part of the UMN network with his colleagues at Medtronic. And we can even think broader than that. He can also be a part of the broader University of Minnesota Medical Technology Network with Network. There, Isaac the Bulldog can meet my other friend, Juma, a Twin Cities mechanical engineering grad now working at Boston Scientific. I could also just introduce these people to each other, but the framework is better suited. And importantly, current students will benefit as well. UMD's mentorship program has been very successful in connecting current students with alumni. However, we feel that these current students should also have the opportunity to draw on the knowledge, networks, and expertise of Raptor, Cougar, Eagle, and Gopher graduates. That's the balance reflected in this framework. Preserving what makes UMD special while expanding what's possible for our alumni and students. And because students are ultimately at the center of that opportunity, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Randy Koopman, a proud Morris graduate, who will explain how a broader alumni network can help students see what's possible with the University of Minnesota degree. Thank you. Randy?
Thank you, Mike. As a proud Morris graduate, I've always believed one of the university's greatest strengths is the way alumni help students see what's possible with the University of Minnesota degree. You see this in the Community of Scholars event and the Undergraduate Research Symposium event at Morris. At both, high-achieving students connect with graduates who come back to campus and participated in these very programs as students. But one of my most rewarding experiences for me came when Morris students visited my area of Boston to explore careers and graduate schools. My fellow alumni and I had the chance to help students see what was possible and help them along their journey. That's the power of alumni, helping them explore careers, build professional networks, and discover where their education can take them. What excites me most about the One Alumni Community 5 Campuses framework is that it removes campus boundaries to alumni connections. Because the strength of a student's alumni network shouldn't be defined by where they graduated, it should be strengthened by the entire University of Minnesota community. One way we do that is through the Alumni Association's Maroon and Gold Network, the university's online mentoring and career community that serves more than 27,000 students and alumni across campuses. Last year alone, the platform connected students to 60 micro-internship opportunities provided by alumni, giving students real-world professional experience before they graduated. With campuses collaborating together, a Duluth student interested in biotechnology can connect with a Rochester graduate at Mayo Clinic, or a Morris alum in Boston can open a door for a Twin Cities student by making an introduction that changes their career path. Helping students succeed strengthens the very communities we all choose to build our lives and careers. Via video, Rachel Seisler, a proud Rochester alumna, will share how alumni partnerships are creating an even greater impact locally, specifically across Southeast Minnesota.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for including me today, though I regret not being able to join you all in person. As a Duluth and Rochester graduate, I've seen firsthand how quickly UMR has grown. Our success is rooted in partnerships and in a community that prepares students to make a difference. Those partnerships come to life through alumni like the Spitton family. Matthew and Megan are both UMR alumni, and their careers in research and patient care are improving lives across Southeast Minnesota. Matthew's work helped establish Rochester's community air quality monitoring network through partnerships with the university, Mayo Clinic, and community leaders. His story was highlighted in the 2025 State of the Campus event. Allison Henning's journey from UMR to Mayo Clinic also reflects the power of partnership. Today, UMR students can follow an accelerated pathway into Mayo Clinic's Surgical First Assistant program, preparing graduates like Allison to care for patients and help train the next generation of surgical professionals. Finally, Serena Handrick's journey reflects UMR's commitment to preparing graduates to lead through service. Today, she's coaching volleyball, serving as an AmeriCorps reading tutor, and continuing to build healthier communities everywhere she goes. Together, these alumni represent the kind of impact that the University of Minnesota Rochester's alumni are making across Southeast Minnesota. What excites me is that the One Alumni Community, 5 Campuses framework expands opportunities for even more alumni to make this kind of impact together. Today, more than 16,900 University of Minnesota alumni from across all 5 campuses call Southeast Minnesota home. For Rochester, one of the greatest opportunities is tapping into this local network and welcoming alumni from every University of Minnesota campus in the region into the life and future of UMR. These alumni can be incredible mentors and volunteers. Together, they are strengthening the University of Minnesota's presence across Southeast Minnesota. Strong communities also create strong advocates for the university. Jess Bankston, a proud Crookston alumna, will now share how alumni across Greater Minnesota are helping strengthen relationships with policymakers and community leaders.
Thanks to Rachel for sending in that video. Alongside the U of M's 175th anniversary, U of M Crookston is celebrating 120 years since the very first class started in 1906, and 60 years since the debut of our college courses. So we've got 3 celebrations in store, along with M Alumni Day and all the good things coming up. We're grateful for all 3 of our campus eras as well. Northwest School of Agriculture, which was our first era, the Aggies, the University of Minnesota Technical Institute, Trojans, and of course, University of Minnesota Crookston Golden Eagles. At Crookston, we've always understood that one of the university's greatest strengths is its connection to communities across Greater Minnesota. You can see that connection with Crookston's annual Agorama event, where for over 50 years, alumni, students, staff, and employers come together to celebrate Minnesota agriculture while helping students build careers in one of the state's most important industries. You can also see it when alumni bring community leaders and policymakers together. Last February, the Alumni Association partnered with the Crookston campus to host an alumni legislator social in East Grand Forks, which was one of the 7 socials held across Minnesota to connect alumni with state lawmakers. There, alumni joined Representative Steve Gander and Senator Mark Johnson for a candid conversation about the university's impact in Northwest Minnesota. Those conversations matter because they help community leaders understand the university isn't just in Minnesota, it is for Minnesota. The One Alumni Community 5 Campuses framework allows us to build on that momentum by engaging more alumni advocates, strengthening relationships with those community leaders, and telling the story of the university with one alumni voice. We've seen what's possible when alumni come together. During this past legislative session, alumni advocates from across Minnesota helped secure funding for critical HEAPR investments, including projects that will improve facilities on the Crookston, Morrison, Duluth campuses, and then the new St. Paul Campus Center. That's the power of one alumni community. Alumni sharing one story, strengthening relationships again, and helping advance the university's priorities. A stronger alumni voice doesn't happen by accident. It grows when alumni have opportunities to lead. Now, Nadia Hassan, the 90th chair of the Minnesota Alumni Association Board of Directors, will share how this framework empowers leadership pathways for alumni across all 5 campuses.
Thank you, Jess. I'm grateful to serve as the as the chair of the University of Minnesota Alumni Association Board of Directors during this important moment. The board is comprised of an extraordinary group of alumni leaders who volunteer their time, talent, and expertise to strengthen both the Alumni Association and the university. You'll find our full board roster in your docket materials. I recently had the opportunity to serve on the Alumni Advisory Committee with Jeff, Rachel, Randy, and Mike. It was a great experience and was one of the steps that paved the way to where we are today. Throughout today's presentation, you've heard about how the One Alumni Community 5 Campus framework will enable opportunities for alumni to connect, mentor, advocate, and strengthen the university. It also creates new opportunities for alumni to lead. For 123 years, the Alumni Association's mission has been to foster a lifelong spirit of belonging and pride while advocating for the university and its alumni. Over the past year, as we contemplated this framework, what struck me and many others is that this framework fully embodies the mission of the Alumni Association to foster a lifelong spirit of belonging and pride by connecting alumni, students, and friends to the University of Minnesota and each other. By bringing alumni together through one alumni association, every graduate has the opportunity to belong and lead, strengthening our collective impact. That's why I'm pleased to share the UMAA board unanimously supports the One Alumni Community 5 Campus framework and updated its Alumni Association's bylaws to reflect our commitment to serving the university's entire alumni community. With these bylaw changes, graduates from every campus can now serve on the Alumni Association's board of directors, board councils, and committees. We also created a new campus council so each campus has a dedicated voice in shaping the future of the Alumni Association. In fact, Randy recently joined and began his first term on the University of Minnesota Alumni Association board, and we're delighted to have him. Together, these changes created one alumni voice for the could create one alumni voice for the university, one that reflects the experiences and perspectives across our entire alumni community. These changes don't replace the outstanding alumni leadership already happening across the university. They strengthen it by connecting alumni leaders across campuses. Those leadership opportunities also extend to the University Senate, where alumni from all campuses can now serve, bringing a broader alumni perspective to the university's shared governance. Ultimately, that's why the UMAA board embraced this framework. Lisa, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Nadia, and to all of our presenters. As we look ahead, we'll continue to listen, as we are doing in our campus Listen and Learn tours. We are bringing together the campus alumni relations professionals and UMAA staff for visits to all 5 campuses. We're learning about their strengths, their traditions, their goals. As one alumni team, we're preparing to be advocates and champions for the entire university. Next, we move to phase 3 of our journey, where we're integrating the framework into our day-to-day alumni programs and services. In the spring of 2027, we will launch a public campaign that brings to life the vision of the framework. This thoughtful approach allows us to learn, adapt, and ensure that we're building from the ground up. We're building something to last. As we look ahead, success will be measured by the opportunities we create. Imagine a Duluth family encouraging their child to attend Crookston because they understand the strengths of that campus. Or a Crookston student finding a Rochester graduate through the Maroon and Gold Network and landing their first job. What if alumni from every campus joined together to advocate for the university's priorities at the state capitol and in Washington, D.C.? Imagine a Twin Cities alum and a Morris alum connecting through our geographic networks and affinity communities. What could we be if more graduates volunteered their time, their talent, and expertise to support students' career aspirations? And consider the potential if even more alumni invested philanthropically across the university. These aren't just possibilities, they're the kinds of opportunities that this framework was built to support. I'd like to close by thanking everyone who's been part of this effort over the last year. It really is a team effort. But I want to start with the Board of Regents. You all are volunteers, and you give tirelessly of your time and energy to lead the university forward. We recognize that, and we're grateful. I also want to thank President Cunningham for her leadership and support. She's been a wonderful advisor through this entire process, and we could not have done it without her. To our chancellors and campus leaders for their collaboration and their commitment to alumni engagement. And to the alumni relations professionals community across all the campuses, schools, and colleges, and our extraordinary Alumni Association staff, whose dedication continues to create new opportunities of engagement for alumni. And to our many university partners, and I'll give a few shout outs to marketing and communications, government relations, student affairs, the foundation, and athletics, and so many others. Thank you for your collaboration. And of course, to the alumni who shared their ideas and experiences and hopes and aspirations as we work through all of these initiatives. But I'd especially like to close thanking Nadia, Jess, Rachel, Randy, and Mike for their exceptional alumni leadership. It's been a year in the making, so it feels really good to be here. Each of you are living up to what's possible with a U of M degree and what it means to leave a legacy of giving back your time and your talent to advance the institution that continues to impact your lives. We're excited about what comes next, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you all for joining us and for that great presentation. I really like this a lot, as you know, Lisa. You guys did this difficult thing that's going to pay huge dividends for the University of Minnesota for years and years to come. And I know it was hard, and it hasn't always been easy, but wow, what a great thing for all of us in the University of Minnesota throughout the whole state. So thank you for that. I'd now like to open it up for discussion, and we'll start with President Cunningham.
Wow. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you to the alumni across all of the networks. You know, this idea that began with the system optimization work, a call out to those folks who did that work. You know, how do we operate better across so many facets to support students first as the student priority across all of our system? This is a great example of that. But also just to call out that this is organizational change, but this is also cultural change. And we can do those things here at the university, and you've demonstrated, you know, in the last year and a half, you have moved both the culture forward and the organization forward. And those are the kinds of changes that we're going to need in order to really thrive going forward. And so I just want to thank you. Those are big lifts, both of them, to move them ahead. This is so obviously the right thing for everybody. And yet it took that big lift to get it there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you, Chair Hips. Thank you to the panel for all of that. I agree with Chair Hips. This is exceptional. As someone who's been at various levels engaged with the Alumni Association since I graduated. It never really occurred to me that they were separate in the way that they were. A couple quick questions. You alluded to the Maroon and Gold Network, which I encourage all regents to join. Historically, I take it that that was Twin Cities specific, but it's now going to be something that we try to engage other campuses, alums. Is that what you're saying, or has it always been all 5?
Regent Bergstrom, Chair Hipsch, it has always technically been available to all 5, but it was really primarily promoted to the Twin Cities campus. So this will lift off the perceived barriers that allow it to be much more robust, and working in partnership with the staff on all 5 campuses. There will be an integrated marketing plan to the alumni to make sure all the students and all the alumni know this is for everyone.
That's terrific. And then how granular do you envision some of these opening of doors going? Like I get emails from the history department at Twin Cities History Department about their book club. I don't really read books, so I never join it, but is that something that would go to history alums from all campuses, do you kind of see, or is that not yet kind of contemplated? Is that too granular?
It's going to be a hybrid, and it's going to be very audience dependent. So context is going to matter. We will default to system and having messages, having programs be inclusive, but there will be times when that doesn't make sense. It is Go for Homecoming. It is Duluth Homecoming. And so there are pieces where we have to understand how the alumni would receive it, how it's gonna land, and then tailor the message and the program to that. But it will primarily be everyone unless that doesn't make sense for them.
I can chime in on this.
Yeah.
One thing, when we had our listening sessions and discussed this, we don't want to inundate people with emails, so we're going to work very hard to strike the right balance, and depending on what people are interested in and things like that, we'll try to have it be thoughtful about communications.
Thank you. Regent Luger.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and I really want to commend you all. I have been, in my career, involved in alumni relations. And so, number one, I think this is so exciting. I also know it's a lot of change. It's a lot of opening doors that were not wanting to be opened, perhaps. And so thank you for all the hard work that you've done to date. I think this has been done in an extremely thoughtful way. And I also think the timeline, the metrics to understand how this is going to be successful is also really important. I would also say, Lisa, you are not giving yourself enough credit. So thank you for your leadership and also the leadership of this entire group. I think the work that's been done to date is fantastic. There's a lot of hard work ahead, and thank you for continuing that.
Thank you, Regent. Regent Ruth Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I would like to add my voice to the positive acclamations for what you've been doing. It's fantastic. Thank Lisa and all the leaders from all the different campuses. Just want to have a couple comments on the Rochester community, which is somewhat unique and obviously the newest of the campuses. So it's been fantastic to watch the city of Rochester embrace University of Minnesota Rochester and all the wonderful things there, and partnerships with Mayo and the city and Destination Medical Center and all of that. And we've, of course, been holding some wonderful alumni events there. And one of the things that's great is to see that there are people, of course, who've been alumni of the U, all 4 other campuses for decades. And they've been in Rochester, but there hasn't been that much going on. But now with the activated, kind of alumni process there, as well as the whole UMR and excitement. So those people are coming to the alumni events who may have graduated from the Twin Cities or Morris or, decades ago, years ago, whatever, and they're now active parts of the alumni group there, which has been very rewarding to see. So that's just one example I wanted to highlight, and to thank you for your work and how that really makes a big difference in a community.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentations. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item is to review, As we have heard earlier, Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, Goldman, will be departing the university this summer. Before he does, we want to take one last opportunity to use his deep expertise and hear his reflections on the university's current budget model. Executive Vice Goldman, could you please begin?
Chair Hipsch and the board, thank you for the opportunity to spend some time discussing an important topic that affects every college, every department, and every administrative unit at the University of Minnesota, our budget model. When people hear the words budget model, they often think about accounting formulas and spreadsheets. In reality, a budget model is much more than that. A budget model determines how resources are allocated. It influences accountability, it creates incentives, it shapes behavior, and ultimately it affects how effectively an institution can pursue its academic mission. Before talking about responsibility-centered management, or RCM, I want to begin with what I believe is the single most important point in today's discussion. Budget models do not create more revenue. Let me repeat that. Budget models do not create more revenue. Changing a budget model does not increase enrollment. It does not produce more research grants. It does not generate additional state appropriations. It does not create more philanthropic support. It does not eliminate inflation, and it does not solve structural deficits. These outcomes come from outstanding academic programs, exceptional faculty, successful students, innovative research, operational excellence, philanthropy, and thoughtful and proactive leadership. A budget model simply determines how we manage and allocate the resources we have. That distinction is important because sometimes universities believe the budget model will solve all financial challenges. It won't. But a better budget model does help us make better decisions, and those better decisions are what ultimately improve the university's financial health. So where are we today? In the university's current model, the system campuses, Twin City colleges, and other academic units receive all of the tuition they earn. This means 100% of the tuition, indirect cost recovery, sales, fees, clinical income, and so on is attributed to the academic unit earning that revenue. These units also get most of the university's state O&M allocation. Since the O&M allocation is not earned by a specific college or campus, it is distributed on an incremental basis over the years that is not tied to anything specific other than the needs and balancing of the units. This is the hybrid portion of our current model. Under the current model, the state O&M allocation can be used flexibly to help balance units' budgets when they are not financially self-supporting, and also to fund central initiatives. But practically speaking, this becomes more and more difficult when the state funds are stagnant or declining. Because the academic units receive 100% of the revenue, they earn plus most of the flexible state O&M appropriation, they must also pay for all the costs, not only their own, but costs to support the university's administrative functions, student success, financial operations, and other support functions. To assess the cost of the support units, the university's budget model includes a set of statistics that determine the exact charges to assess each campus college, campus, or other academic unit. Limitations on incremental budgeting. Up until about 20 years ago, the University of Minnesota did operate under what is largely an incremental budgeting approach. Incremental budgeting has served higher education well for decades. It provides stability, predictability, and units generally know what resources they can expect from year to year. Planning is relatively straightforward. Major budget swings are less common. Those are all meaningful strengths. But incremental budgeting also has limitations. Because budgets are built largely from prior year allocations, they sometimes reflect historical patterns more than current institutional priorities. When enrollment grows quickly in one college, resources may not follow as quickly. When programs shrink, budget adjustments often occur slowly. Innovation can be difficult because there are relatively few financial incentives to create new academic programs, expand research activity, improve operational efficiency, or pursue entrepreneurial opportunities. Incremental budgeting does do an excellent job of maintaining stability, though in today's higher education environment, we need to have budget models that require a university to balance stability with adaptability. Demographics are changing, student expectations are changing. Research funding is increasingly competitive and under federal scrutiny and pressure. Technology investments continue to grow, and deferred maintenance is significant across all of our higher education, as we can see across our campuses. Financial pressures continue to increase, and universities need budgeting systems that can respond. Advantages to RCM, responsibility-centered management. This takes a different approach. Rather than beginning with last year's budget, RCM begins with current activity. Revenue generally follows where students enroll. Research revenue follow research activity. Many direct costs are assigned to the units generating those activities. Schools and colleges have greater authority over their financial decisions, but with that authority comes greater accountability. When implemented well, RCM encourages schools and colleges to think strategically, to grow enrollment, improve student retention, expand research, develop innovative academic programs, and manages resources carefully. This includes increasing philanthropy. Financial transparency also improves. Units gain a much clearer understanding of both the revenues they generate and the costs required to support their activities. That transparency often leads to stronger financial decision-making throughout the institution. That being said, RCM is not perfect. Like every management system, RCM has challenges. A pure RCM model can unintentionally encourage competition amongst colleges rather than collaboration. It can make interdisciplinary work much more difficult. Programs that are academically essential but not financially self-supporting may face additional pressures. Administrative complexity also increases. Determining how to allocate costs for libraries, information technology, public safety facilities, student services, debt service, and central administration is never simple. Another challenge is financial volatility. Enrollment fluctuations can quickly impact budgets. Without thoughtful design, that instability can make long-term planning more difficult. These are not reasons to reject RCM, they're reasons to recognize that no budget model is perfect. Why many universities have moved towards hybrid RCM, because both incremental budgeting and pure RCM have strengths and weaknesses. Many leading research universities have adopted what is commonly referred to as hybrid responsibility-centered management. Hybrid RCM seeks to combine the best features of both approaches. Schools and colleges receive greater financial transparency and stronger initiatives to grow, strengthen research, improve efficiencies, and manage resources responsibly. At the same time, universities retain central responsibility for institutional-wide priorities, such as strategic investment, debt management, capital planning, information technology, and compliance. Hybrid RCM recognizes that some decisions are best made locally, while others are best made centrally. It combines accountability with stewardship. That being said, academic decisions must remain academic decisions. There is one important misconception about responsibility-centered management that deserves special attention. Sometimes people believe RCM means that financial formulas determine academic decisions. This is simply not true. Whether a university uses incremental budgeting, pure RCM, or hybrid RCM, the president, the provost, and central administration should not be deciding what academic programs are expanded, reduced, consolidated, or discontinued. Let me be clear, as there have been some comments by faculty and others in the university community to the contrary. Here at the University of Minnesota, the president, the provost, or anyone in administration are not the ones making programmatic reduction decisions or changes over the last few years. These have been dictated by the deans, department chairs, and their faculty. These are fundamental academic decisions. Those decisions belong within the university's longstanding system of shared governance. They should be coordinated and in partnership with the deans, department chairs, faculty, and other academic leaders who best understand the quality, the demand, the mission, accreditation requirements, and future direction of their disciplines. The role of a budget model is different. The budget model provides transparent financial information. It helps identify opportunities, it highlights trade-offs, it informs decisions, but it should never replace academic judgment. Said another way, the budget model answers this question: what are the financial implications of this academic decision? It should never answer, what academic decisions should we make? The distinction is fundamental. Financial information should inform academic decisions, not dictate them. If the University of Minnesota were to explore moving towards a more significant hybrid RCM model, I would not recommend this dramatic change overnight, but I do recommend the university moving forward in this direction. Most successful universities that operate under RCM have taken a thoughtful, phased approach. The first step is improving financial transparency and planning, helping colleges understand revenue and expenses better, develop activity-based financial reporting and multi-year financial planning in all of our academic and administrative units, building confidence in the underlying data. The second step is to introduce selective incentives, providing incentives for research expansion, supporting operational efficiencies, rewarding interdisciplinary initiatives, make an interdisciplinary unit potentially worth more than a non-interdisciplinary unit, maintaining strategic investment funds that will allow central leadership to support emerging priorities across the university. Only after trust, transparency, and experience have developed should broader structural changes be considered. Most importantly, this should be an institutional conversation, not simply a financial conversation. Regardless of which models we choose, several principles should be always guiding us. Academic quality must remain our highest priority. Student success must remain central. Research excellence must continue to be supported. Mission-critical disciplines must continue to receive institutional investment, even when they are not the largest generator of revenue. Shared services should become more efficient, not fragmented. Strategic investment should continue to support the university's long-term priorities, and transparency should strengthen trust across the university. In closing, I'd like to remind our board, the budget models are often discussed as financial systems. I believe they are really management systems. They determine how we align incentives, how we allocate resources, how we encourage innovation, how we promote accountability, and how we advance our mission. Incremental budgeting has served the university well by providing stability. Responsibility-centered management has provided a stronger incentive and greater accountability approach. A thoughtfully designed, increased RCM hybrid model offers the opportunity to combine these strengths while avoiding many of their respective weaknesses. Most importantly, no budget model can ever replace thoughtful leadership. It cannot replace outstanding faculty. It cannot replace excellent academic programs. And it cannot replace the shared governance that has long been one of the strengths of the University of Minnesota. Our financial future will not be determined by the mechanics of a budget model. It will be determined by the decisions we make together, guided by our mission, informed by transparent financial information, and grounded in our shared commitment to teaching, research, public service, and success of every student across all of our campuses. Thank you. I look forward to your questions, to what I hope will be an ongoing conversation after I depart about how we can continue to strengthen the university's financial future while preserving the academic excellence that defines the University of Minnesota. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I guess I'll start with a question, and it's, I didn't really like RCM by itself, and I didn't really like the budget model as it is by itself, but the hybrid, I can see some opportunity there. But the question I guess I have is, so let's say you're looking into the future, there's no revenue now. How do you allocate money into future when there's no revenue or enrollment now to get to the future on the RCM model?
Yeah, so I think if we think about the future, certainly if we talk about the levers, which we've talked about at the budget presentation, you have one lever of tuition. Clearly, tuition is something that needs to be paced at a rate equal to inflation, but it needs to be paced to a rate equal to inflation. It's impossible to solve for all the things that are important around workforce, appropriate pay of workforce, affordability, and what is a declining demographics across the country when it comes to higher education and students. So certainly continued operational efficiency, continued stepping back and really figuring out where we might have redundant programs, where we might have redundant efforts, and where we just can't afford to have, let's just say, 3 or 4 communications programs across the university. My fundamental belief is if we try to be excellent at everything, we'll end up being mediocre at everything. So I look to this board, but more importantly, to President Cunningham and Provost Ritter for the leadership that I know they're going to provide as we start to think about what might be a slightly smaller university, a university much more focused without the redundancies that, as I mentioned, RCM across the country just inherently build into a student and seat mentality. So Chair Hipsch, I don't think there's one answer. I think we have to have the fortitude of this board to continue to increase tuition at a responsible rate. I think we have to have the fortitude of this board to support academic programmatic changes that for sure will end up, as those hard decisions are made, above the fold in the strib. And just because something's above the fold in the strib doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision. And I look to this board to have that support of the administration, of the president, of the provost, as those hard decisions come.
Thank you. President Cunningham.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, EVP Goldman, and to the board, and thank you for their presentation. I know you thought it was important to do, I thought it was important to do, as we're talking a lot about budgets, to help everyone remember, and for those folks who are newer, that we have this RCM model, which means that we distribute centrally. We are not making programmatic decisions. We are deciding the funds are getting distributed to 50 different budget units, and those funds are flowing predominantly based on the amount of a formula, how much enrollment they have, how the research they generate generates dollars that flow back then automatically, how much tuition they generate then flows back automatically, and then there's some operations funding that goes. But overwhelmingly, those are because that's an accountability RCM system that the university moved to here, I don't know, 25 years ago. Many universities moved to this 25 or 30 years ago. That's different than that incremental model, which he says, where we sit here centrally and dole out. That's not the way that it works. It works in a formulaic way out. And then as those unit leaders a dean, a chancellor, gets that basically formulaic amount, they then make budget decisions, which may be less in some years and more in some years, depending predominantly on enrollment and research. They then have to make budget decisions to increase programming or to decrease programming. And they do that with the accountability of knowing which programs are growing because they're the local leaders, which programs are outdated and are not well enrolled anymore. They make those decisions locally. And there's pros and cons to that model. This is a model many places around the country have. It increases entrepreneurship by local leaders to generate more revenue. That can be a good thing. It can also increase entrepreneurship for this person, dean, to do the same thing that this dean is doing and to compete within the system. Happens all the time. This is a well-known negative of RCM budgeting, is we could have people competing for the same student resources essentially, or the same research sometimes, right? That's not necessarily bad, and often we can encourage collaboration. It's not a model that encourages interdisciplinarity. It's a well-known barrier of RCM budgeting that it actively decreases that because you want to get the revenue flow to your unit, not because you're not a great leader and a citizen of the university, because that's how your budget works. You're an individual, essentially business, and there's 50 of them. So that's how budget decisions get made now. There's a variety, that incremental model, which is that old model that most people moved away from, and that EVP certainly doesn't recommend that we move back to. Instead had, the center just deciding every year. Well, the center also doesn't have the most knowledge for what's actually going on at the programmatic level. Those decisions are best with local leaders, and that's what he means. Certainly the provost will be involved in helping the deans in some of those decisions because also knows trends and other components. But the EVP and the president certainly are not making those sorts of decisions. We're making the big lever decisions. We're recommending overall budget level, overall tuition levels. We're recommending overall compensation levels. And then the units get a formula amount of money, and that amount of money they have to make work. And that might mean, again, that they hire 50 people, or they lay off 50 people, they start 6 programs, or they cut 8 programs to make their budget work. And then they're doing the work with their own communities and what's most important for their communities and their mission, and how they can meet the strategic plan of the university. So that's the model that we have right now. There's tweaks to that, which we can talk about over time. But as for this budget year, I just think it's really important for understand that is our budget model. When we made cuts this year or last year, what happens is those cuts go out with the amount of enrollment. So when enrollment is down because weird things happen in the universe, that means that unit that budgeted for more enrollment suddenly has less enrollment, which means they automatically have less funds, which means they automatically have perhaps too many faculty, or adjuncts per classes because now they have less enrollment. So they have to manage that at their level. They are the local leaders. This model works really well when you have very strong financial leaders in the deans and chancellors positions and very strong finance professionals underneath them, and very good data systems to help support those decisions. So this is our current system, and I just think this is something we haven't spent very much time with, and as we are making substantial shifts and things in the budget, it's important to know. So the board's governance level is then setting the whole budget, right? In one swift, one vote, you vote for the whole budget. I'm recommending very high levels of things: tuition, compensation, money towards overall capital. And then the next level of decision is out. Dean Lugar, you get this pocket of money that's predominantly based on your enrollment, how much research you're getting. Now the research dollars you're getting is tied to how much indirect cost rates there are, because that's the overhead, and those have dropped, right? So if indirect cost rates are down now, you have to plan for a budget that has less enrollment, less indirect cost rates. And then if there's, not funds from the state to increase, then there's no top off for anything else. And then you have to manage how you're gonna know your College of Design budget, what's relevant in your field, what's most relevant to mission, what's not relevant to mission, and then changes happen underneath. And then faculty feel those changes and students feel those changes, and they're gonna have a variety of feelings about that. But those are decisions that are made locally, not that it's certainly only the dean's issue, it's everyone's issue, but that's where those decisions get made for what needs to be done, right? So just to kind of set the stage of the levers There's a lever that the board pushes, which, the president certainly is never picking that we should have more of one kind of class or another kind of class. I don't have that local knowledge. Boards across the country certainly don't have that local knowledge. There's been political overlay in that certainly around the country. I'm grateful that our board is not involved in thinking at the class and program level. The president is not involved in that. The provost certainly should be involved in that because she's the chief academic officer. The finance officer is not involved in that. But so just so there's an understanding when we're thinking about budgets and budgeting and what levers we're pushing, those are the kinds of levers the board has. Those are the kinds of levels the president has. And then the money goes out to 50 budget units and they manage them. And then they're responsible for balancing their budgets and managing that money back. And Greg's shop is then responsible for over the year making sure that they've managed to their budget back. So.
Thank you. Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Hips, and thank you, EVP Goldman, too. And I'm going to double down on that first. First of all, I've been the Finance Committee Chair, and your expertise, your acumen, your knowledge, your responsiveness, and quite honestly, your humanity has benefited this university, and thank you very much for that. And I appreciate you putting the budgetary piece into the context of the whole as well. This is just a piece. This isn't going to drive everything that ails us. This is just a piece of the puzzle. And I also appreciate you thinking about how, President Cunningham's, doubling down on your explanation of RCM and its challenges and its advantages. It's an advantage to be an accountability model, and it's an advantage of, having the people closest to the work define how the work should be done, and who should do it. But you were always in situations like this having to balance the whole and the parts of things, right? And one of the things on the governor's task force they hammered into all of us is like the biggest opportunity at the university is interdisciplinary and cross-campus and all of these opportunities that aren't being taken up. And worry that this budgeting model, as President Cunningham, just stated, is a very siloed approach to that. And I think that's why we were looking to you. The biggest question I had for you, I think you answered, in that we should look at a better way to balance the whole and the parts with maybe a hybrid model. And then you also went so far as to tell us, God, what principles should we have in place, and what kind of roadmap would there be to get there? I'm just wondering what advice you would give the board as to how to know if we choose to make that change, and what options. It'll be like the Alumni Association, right, where there's a cultural change in addition to a technical one. But if we choose to make that change, what should we as board members be looking for that it's being done, appropriately and correctly, if it's chosen? I know we're understanding RCM better, and we're trying to see what the future looks like in a brighter way. But what should we be looking for as board members?
Appreciate that, Member Wheeler, Chair Hipsch. I think as you look at board governance versus operational oversight, as President Cunningham described, the board needs to focus on the ultimate budget, as Chair Hipsch asked the question, is paying attention to bottom right when you're approving those budgets, to say, okay, how have we gotten there? Because the reality is, there are not going to be large tuition increases anywhere across the country. While I hope the state finances change over time, the immediacy of that is unclear. I also expect much more probably targeted investment as opposed to general increases in O&M when it comes to accountability around that from the state level. Honestly, if there's not a Strib story about some of the choices that have been made, we're not thinking big enough, bold enough, and transformational enough. And when I look to this board, and I use the example of the golf course, one of the most politically fraught things that we've done in my time here, at least from my chair, and you all were flooded with comments and concerns. You voted your conscience, which I respect and appreciate, but at the same time understood that public pressure or flooding of your inboxes doesn't mean it's the wrong approach or the wrong thing to do. So I think as a board, is supporting the provost particularly on some of these hard changes across the university. Because I guarantee you, for every department that's happy because they're going to be growing, there's departments that will not be happy because they're going to be shrinking. So as a board, what I encourage is, obviously, as you all are, being thoughtful, being responsive, but letting the administration, and particularly around these things, the provost, lead and manage for the reason that she's here to help our deans and to help the community manage through these times that are coming. I have full confidence that something like interdisciplinary, there's ways to approach it by adding a greater incentive by way of revenue. Think about if every tuition unit were worth $1, you could make every interdisciplinary unit worth $1.10. Now, that would incentivize interdisciplinary cross-college collaboration. It would also maybe make every other unit worth 95 cents. And obviously the president and the provost will make that decision of what's the best way to take the limited dollars we have. Once again, this is not going to generate more revenue, but if we can find a way to continue to get our students out as quickly as we can, have the courses that they need, and continue to make this academic be even more rankings and reputation than it already is, that will have a great financial impact because more students will come. They'll get out in a responsible, respectable period of time, and will remove redundancy across the enterprise, which unfortunately RCM does. I'd much rather have that redundancy than an incremental model. My time at UCLA was an incremental budget model that at the end of the day did not support the long-term strength of UCLA, and they're looking at changing that. So I think this board, this institution is in a very good place. Now we just have to have the fortitude to make the hard decisions and to let the administration run the university, and for you all to provide the governance to make sure that the questions are asked, as we've talked about, in a way that when you get the emails, when you get the calls, and when the stories end up in the paper, the answers are there.
Great, thank you very much.
Regent Bergstrom.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and thank you, EVP Goldman, for that presentation. I'm struck by what Chair Hipsch said to start at the start of the meeting. We have the best men's hockey player and by far the best higher ed finance lead. So it's sad to lose you. Question, further to Regent Wheeler's comment, with the governor's task force encouraging interdisciplinary work in this model of, I think, 50 budget units, you can, under that RCM model, you can move to a place where they're kind of fiefdoms. So we have to avoid that. But somehow what I've thought we've heard over the last years, we are actually one of the leaders, if not the leader, on interdisciplinary work. So we've somehow managed to do this better than most in a move to RCM. Do you, kind of further to Regent Wheeler's question, do you have, on that question about interdisciplinary work, do you have a sense of what we've done better? Is it a cultural thing that you can't really put your finger on? Or how do we continue as a board to make sure we keep that piece in mind? Because I think we're doing it well, or better than most, which maybe better than most isn't actually that great. I don't know.
Certainly, I may look to President Cunningham and Provost Ritter about their views of what we do well. I do think we do it well, but I'm not sure if well enough is a word, but we'll make it a word for this presentation, and that is, I think we can always do better, and if we've done this well, as you've described, without what I think are the appropriate incentives to try to break down the walls and the barriers, I think we can do it even better. But I look to President Cunningham for thoughts and comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hipsch and Regent Bergstrom. I'm looking into how that measurement goes. I think at the individual faculty level, our faculty are very collaborative. I think our faculty are very collaborative, and Minnesotans are very collaborative people, right? But it's at the unit level, and that's what impacts the outcomes differently, that's impeded here. And certainly more in research, less in the teaching component. So harder to do interdisciplinary classes here in every RCM model, because again, the tuition typically flows to where the student went. So then you're disencouraging, whatever the word is, you're discouraging, thank you, discouraging, for example, students to be taking classes other places because you want them in your unit, right? There's a lot of pieces about it. Again, there's a lot of great things about RCM. It encourages that entrepreneurship. It encourages accountability in a way that the incremental model that came before it didn't encourage. You just got the money and you got the money every year. This way you get the money, but if your enrollment tanks and your research tanks, you get less money. So there's accountability that comes with it, but it also creates silos and it creates duplication of a number of different things because the units are set up and they do become, in all RCM models, contained, some would say fiefdom, in different ways, despite how the good intent by our leaders and by our faculty to collaborate, it's a system level problem. The system disinhibits it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Inhibits it, not disinhibits it. Can't get my...
Regent Lugar.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I'd like to echo all the previous comments from my colleagues about the incredible expertise that you've provided to us, so thank you. Again, I'm going to focus on sort of our role as the board, and I'm wondering if, and you don't need to cite these now, if you could just provide us some examples of large land-grant universities that are either operating under our current model extremely well, or you would cite them as operating really well. And also some examples of, large land-grant public universities that are operating under a hybrid model really well. Because I think it would be helpful for us as a board to see some kind of case studies about, this place is using RCM, here's what they're doing really well. This place has transitioned, here's some of the challenges that they found, here's some lessons learned, that sort of thing.
Perfect. Chair Hipsch, Regent Lugar, very good question. And rather than try to do this off the top of my head, what I'd like to do is, in the next week and a half, is I'm not sure they'll, that's okay, that's okay. President Cunningham is excelling at that already, so it's okay.
Every minute of time till he leaves, yes. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, let me see what I can put together, and at least, if not the specificity, the framework of research that can be done, because then interim EVP Volna can reach out. He knows those individuals as well. But let me try to put the framework together of large land grant. And I'd also, land grant's important, but I'd also not want to limit us to just land grant institutions when it comes to where RCM is working, not working, hybrid, not hybrid. But happy to put that together, and via the board office and President Cunningham, we'll make sure that gets distributed. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you for your presentation. Regent Hines.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch and EVP Goldman. Thank you for this. If I may, I'd like to have an observation and then a question. It sounds to me as if market-driven incentives flowing from the budget will become vital. And it seems to me that that's going to be a real shock to the system for academics. So I guess we'll look to Provost Ritter to sort that one out and make everybody happy. But that gets me to my question, which is, how do we assure that intellectual preeminence is possible at the institution for researchers who perhaps are not generating big grant money, particularly from the current set of circumstances in Washington, for people doing higher mathematics or philosophy or whatever? How do we assure ourselves that this great institution continues to be regarded as a great institution and not kind of a mechanistic churning out of, the dollars are following where the students want to go, so that means we're doing a lot of computer science or whatever, I don't know. But the importance of excellence and preeminence, intellectual preeminence for the university, how do we assure that that's not going to be diminished?
Chair Hips, Regent Hines, I can speak to the financial side of that. I would look to Provost Ritter or President Cunningham to speak to the academic side of that. So certainly, as I said in my comments, that not every unit, not every faculty member is generating the revenue that would support this preeminence that you've talked about, but the whole is. And the accountability chain of the president to the provost to the deans to the department chairs, and to those out in the field are the ones that are making sure that everybody from assistant professors to full professors that might have more of a niche. Not everybody can teach 200 student econ type courses. And that is why there's part of RCM that's so important in a hybrid, is allowing that financial flexibility for the provost and the president to incentivize. And trust me, I grew up in business schools, and incentivize is a word that I heard all the time out of business faculty. And it's not a bad thing, and I don't think the community will be shocked by it. I think it's how do we provide the support, how do we provide the motivation, and how do we provide the deep thinking? So what you've described, I trust it works very well and continue to work well in a hybrid model, and that is that the deans making those academic decisions, supporting the faculty, supporting the researchers that may not be the 200 student econ, because those courses, those faculty are the ones that do it. So I have no doubt that financially it can be achieved, and I have no doubt that under Provost Ritter's direction and guidance, our deans will be even more effective and impactful in doing that.
If I may add, Chair Hipsch, I think the market-driven model that you mentioned right now is the one we've had for 25 years, so that's not a new model. The market forces are certainly more now than before, but that's the model we've had. The way if one has to have strategy and one has to continue to invest in the things that will make the university excellence, and as EVP Goldman mentioned, have the fortitude to stop doing things also, because there's not enough resources to do everything. So those are the leadership decisions along the way. In order for that to happen, deans, central leadership, and certainly, I'll call out, EVP Bradford and our future EVP will also be part of this decision-making broadly. There has to be margin to invest, right? You have to be generating enough revenue to be able to then invest, including in things, and if what you're talking about, it's not just about investing in the research dollars don't go back to the individual researchers, they go to the units, right? But even in a field when you're talking about, say, a humanities, then in those schools, the revenue is generated by tuition. And so then they have to have then enough margin to be able to invest back into the great faculty to think big math thoughts, as you're saying, and be excellent, right? But they can't be spread so thin and so overstretched or overbuilt that there's not margin to be able to then invest back to have great science and excellence in the areas for which we are excellent and can continue to be more excellent. But that has to be strategy, because everything isn't excellent, right? We have to invest wisely in the things because there's not resources to invest in everything. But the deans, whether there's schools that are more research driven and are driven more by research dollars, our School of Engineering, for example, our School of Medicine has a lot of research dollars. There's other schools that have virtually no research dollars, and their RCM model is driven almost entirely by tuition and by enrollment. So it has a differing effect. And that's one of the things that the central model does, is it sort of accounts for that so that schools all have the chance to meet their mission. We can talk more about it offline too.
Chair Hips,
Yep.
I'll try to make this brief, I promise. AVP Goldman, it's going to be sad to see you go. One of my August Leos. I'm glad that we both share that. And there's going to be some big shoes to fill, and just your humility, I think, was really something that was very palatable for me while I've been on the board, and just being able to ask some pretty lay questions and then you really be able to get back to me in great detail. I think what's coming to mind for me as we know what we're dealing with across the landscape, right? The national issues that we're dealing with when it comes to enrollment, the revenue sharing that's pretty difficult across various mechanisms, and just knowing where the state is at around the abilities to particularly contribute. One question that comes to mind for me is, are there ways that we can think about both holding the elements of interdisciplinary, right? The colleges, the units being able to be interconnected, while at the same time knowing that deans will be the sole decision makers for their units, right, for their colleges. Is there a model, right, and maybe this is also a question for you as well, President Cunningham, of how do we get folks to actually maybe share some of these decisions, right? Is there some more collective and reciprocal model where we know that if a particular unit is impacted by budgets and students are maybe relying on that unit and their credits rely on that and their graduation relies on that, is there a way for these deans to actually maybe collaborate and maybe speak to one another before they make these decisions, right? Are there going to be workshops as this hybrid, if we decide to go towards this hybrid model, to really train them on what this decision-making process looks like? And is there going to be opportunities for them to actually work collaboratively rather than in silos? So I think there's a lot there, but I'm just trying to get my thoughts out in a way that hopefully makes sense.
Chair Hipsch and EVP Goldman, it's not really a finance question, so if you're happy, because I think this actually isn't really so much about finance. In the RCM model that we're in right now as well, a culture of collaboration is critical. And this is where, Provost Ritter's leadership in really increasing and building a culture of collaboration across those units. Our strategic plan raises this up as well in the things that are being invested in, which are across unit, and then revenues flow back to units, but there's collaboration. Those muscles are there. We're building them more and more, and that's partly one of the reasons we, a provost role then is to help collaborate across the academic sphere. And then also her and I collectively are doing that as across the academics and across the system to think about where that interdisciplinary, where there's room for thinking about the academics across the system and across the campus. But that's one of the roles of a provost in the management and the accountability across the deans as you're seeing those review. And what does come centrally is review of new programs, for example, and review of not always new programs that are getting sunsetted. You're correct me if I'm wrong. Programs that get sunsetted come centrally here. So there's thinking about how we are coordinated about those, what kinds of, not necessarily board governance, but administrative governance that we need to make sure we're maximizing resources and not encouraging duplication. Even things from software licenses, which right now, for example, are frequently purchased across multiple units because they're operating in more silos, and where can we have maximized central buying, purchasing power? So there's ways to think about it.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for a great, robust discussion on this. Stay tuned. So our next item is to review proposed changes to the reporting line for the chief auditor. Presenting this item is Executive Vice President for Finance, Greg Goldman, Chief Auditor, Quinn Galsbeck, Executive Director, Brian Steves, and Associate Secretary, Jason Langworthy. Executive Director Steves, do you want to get us started?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, when this board last searched for a chief auditor in the fall of 2021, there was a realization that there was some ambiguity surrounding the reporting line for the position. And so in conjunction with that search process, the board adopted policy to make both the functional and administrative reporting lines go to the board, directed to the board. you'll maybe remember, and especially those on the Audit and Compliance Committee will remember that in 2024 there was an external review of our audit function that was completed, and that external review, among other things, recommended alignment with the Institute of Internal Auditors best practices and with peer institutions, and that recommendation was to ensure that the chief auditor has an administrative reporting line that would give that function access to some of the support that it might need to be effective. And that administrative reporting line, the recommendation was that it be to a high-ranking member of the administration. So this proposal that's before you today addresses that recommendation and places the administrative reporting line to the board's treasurer, which is defined in the board's bylaws as the individual holding the executive vice president for finance and operations position. The board treasurer is not just an honorary position, it is an officer of the board and has a dual responsibility to carry out that financial oversight function, but also to help support the board in ensuring that that this board has the information it needs and also is able to effectively exercise its oversight. And included in that is ensuring that there is a robust internal audit function. So by placing the reporting line, the functional reporting line continuing to be to the board, the administrative reporting line to the treasurer, it allows the Office of Internal Audit to have the administrative support that was recommended in the external review, but also have assurance of continued independence. So with that set up, I'll turn, I believe, to Executive Vice President Goldman, or perhaps Treasurer Goldman in this instance, to continue.
Thank you. Chair Hipsch, members of the board. Brian laid out the background clearly and concisely. I want to share brief context on how the changes will work in practice. In higher education, Minnesota is currently a distinct outlier. We are the only Big Ten institution where the chief auditor reports both functionally and administratively to the board. Every other Big Ten institution uses a dual reporting model, pairing a functional line to the board with an administrative line to senior management. In my experience at other major research institutions, dual reporting is the industry standard for a reason. It allows the audit department full independence, maintains direct oversight by the board, and provides the internal audit team with daily administrative backing and support needed to operate effectively. In fact, Quinn and I have been working together in this collaborative spirit already. That informational partnership has allowed finance and operations to identify risks faster, resolve operational issues earlier, and share information more fluidly across units. Codifying this administrative line simply formalizes a model that is already yielding positive results. To be clear, this change does not dilute board authority. The chief auditor retains a direct, unrestricted functional line to the board and to the Audit and Compliance Committee. Shifting the administrative line to the board treasurer gives our audit team the day-to-day support they deserve while preserving the independence this board requires. As a board treasurer, I've always viewed being an officer of the board as charging me to keep the board's interest, and in turn the university's interest, central to my work. That unique relationship to the board and being a senior member of the administration will help to ensure a strong internal audit function if this new model is adopted. Thank you, and I'll hand it over to Jason to walk through the policy details.
Chair Hipsch, members of the board, good morning. Thank you, Executive Vice President Goldman. As both he and Executive Director Steves commented on, I'll walk through how we're actually going to codify this in policy. So if you turn to page 225 of your docket, we're going to do this through a resolution, and that resolution will amend 2 board policies: reservation and delegation of authority, and board operations and agenda guidelines. As noted, these amendments connect to the external review and specifically to the Institute of Internal Auditors standards. And so I'll note how that's addressed as we move through the language. So first, in terms of the appointment itself, so if there were a vacancy in the office of Chief Auditor, hopefully not anytime soon, but if there was, the first thing that would happen, of course, is that there would be a search process using a search committee that would ultimately then, advise then, and what's codified here, then the chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee working with the treasurer to recommend an individual for appointment to that position, as we would typically do for other senior positions that are listed there in reservation and delegation of authority. Next, we made clear that the board reserves to itself authority to remove the chief auditor. So only the board can remove the chief auditor. The treasurer can't, the president can't. Only the board can remove the chief auditor. And that goes to that standard of ensuring that there are appropriate safeguards that are implemented to protect the internal audit function and in turn the chief auditor. In terms of the audit function then, this next section restates the authority that you have over the external audit function. So that is the independent appointed auditor that comes in and does that independent audit that you receive. That becomes the financial statement. And then restates that the Office of the Internal Audit is regulated by the board. And so the way that you do that is you approve the Office of Internal Audit's charter. That really becomes the document that operationalizes how the Office of Internal Audit does its work. And Chief Auditor Galswick will talk about the amendments to align the audit charter to these amendments here in a few minutes. Any amendments to the charter then require, so the charter itself and any amendments to it, and then approving the internal audit plan. Currently in policy, the internal audit plan is received by the Audit and Compliance Committee, but had not been required to be formally approved. And that was one of the findings from the external review to bring into standards to make sure that the committee is actually approving that plan, and then any material revisions to that plan would return for further amendment. And then we're codifying here then the functionality reporting remains with the board via the board's Audit and Compliance Committee, and then administratively to the board's treasurer, as further stated in the Office of Internal Audit's charter. The other thing I'll note here is the annual performance evaluation of the chief auditor, which certainly then starts to think about the internal audit function itself. Would be done and overseen by the chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee in consultation and with administrative report from the treasurer. That evaluation would be shared with the board once it is completed. And much like for the president's evaluation, the Office of the Board of Regents would maintain review process and procedures to undertake that. The other item, as we turn to Article 2 at the bottom of page 226, we're just simplifying the language that the chief auditor may perform advisory services in alignment with the Office of Internal Audit's charter, and at the request of the president or the treasurer may perform audits there. And then finally, I'll just note that the language that's directly below that has not changed remains, that the chief auditor, like the general counsel, is charged with notifying the board of any matter that significantly involves the board's authority, the role of the board, and raises unusual questions of public interest or public policy or could impact the university's mission. That is in place now. That provides sort of that emergency relief valve for the chief auditor to surface something directly to the board to ensure that the board is aware of it if there is something that raises to that level. So that remains in place, and that aligns with the IIA standards. Then turning to board operations and agenda guidelines, simply the first set of changes there just realign then to the new language and reservation delegation of authority. And then finally, we added additional language around the approval of the annual internal audit plan and the charge to the committee to ensure that the Office of Internal Audit, and in turn the chief auditor, is free from undue influence and able to operate effectively to fulfill its purpose and scope of work as stated in the charter. So this again directs the committee to ensure that there is protection for the audit function, even with that administrative reporting line to the treasurer, who is also a member of the administration. So then how that is further operationalized, I'll turn to Chief Auditor Galswick to talk through that in the charter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Hipsch, members of the committee. The updates I'm proposing to the audit charter in your docket material today are to align with the proposed changes to board policy previously discussed by Associate Secretary Langworthy. As noted, the audit charter is the foundational document of the Office of Internal Audit. It details the function's mandate, reporting lines, and scope of work. In addition to establishing the administrative reporting line to the treasurer, proposed updates provide additional detail on what the functional reporting line to the board entails to prevent any undue influence on the Office of Internal Audit. This includes the board retaining authority over the selection, termination, and annual evaluation of the chief auditor, approval of the annual audit plan, and review of any operational duties assigned to the chief auditor. The updates also codify the authority of the chief auditor to speak to the board directly without restraint from the administration. I'd also like just to note that I'm supportive of reestablishing an administrative reporting line to senior management for the chief auditor for the reasons outlined by Treasurer Goldman and Secretary Steves. A key feature I see in this proposal is having the administrative line to the board's treasurer, an institution-wide role with responsibility to the board, which helps reinforce internal audit's broad mandate to audit any university function, not only finance and operational functions. I also plan to maintain my regular meetings and engagement with the president, provost, and other senior leaders in addition to the treasurer to ensure internal audit has escalation paths available if concerns arise anywhere in the institution. But this proposal enables the treasurer to support day-to-day activities of the internal audit department. With that, that ends my remarks, and I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Let's turn to discussion. Does anybody have any discussion regarding this? Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, and thank you, EVP Goldman, Associate Executive Secretary Langworthy, and Chief Auditor Galswick. You know, this is something we've talked about for a while, and really provides the opportunity to bring operations into alignment with what is best practices. This board isn't in a position to oversee day-to-day administrative functions of the chief auditor. While you are a wonderful person, Chief Auditor Galswick, I don't think you want to be coming to me for career advice or how best to navigate, you know, your expense report, for example. But this structure is not only consistent with what we see with our Big Ten peers, but a structure where a chief auditor, audit department, et cetera, has a direct reporting line to the board of directors who is responsible for fiscal compliance, fiduciary oversight, and overall compliance of required auditing functions. For that to continue, while this position and department would then have an administrative reporting line to clarify that side of the business, for lack of a better term, is also consistent with how the corporate world addresses this. As you noted, that administrative line can go a lot of different places. This is not just a financial auditing department and position. There are lots of different issues that Chief Auditor Galswick, you oversee, and the audit department works through. However, that reporting is still to the board, and we are overseeing all of those pieces. So I really appreciate the thought that has gone into these changes, appreciate that this is brought to the board at this time for review. Because it is a change, that is why it's coming to the board, not going through committee fully first and then coming to the board. But really appreciate the time and thought that's gone into developing this proposal.
Thank you. Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch, and to our presenters. Just a quick question, I think, for Associate Secretary Langworthy, looking at the proposed amendment or the resolution language on page 225 around what, you know, looking at what a search would look like if there was a vacancy. Could you just clarify or maybe talk a little bit more about that? Because it sounds like it may be different than what we experienced in the fall of 2021. And just, can you talk just a little bit more about what that would look like? Because I don't remember at the time if there was a search committee and we just interviewed the final two finalists here, or if you could just elaborate briefly, that'd be great. Sure.
Chair Hipsch, Regent Farnsworth. So back during that search, there was a search advisory committee that was formed that included, I believe, 1 or 2 regents, right, that sort of did the work to create a pool of candidates that then, interviewed semifinalists and then recommended finalists to the board, much in the same way that your search for president looked. And then the board as a whole interviewed those finalists. In this sort of configuration, that search committee would remain. That search committee would still continue. They would, create finalists, and then those finalists, right, and likely the chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee would be, potentially a part of that search committee, likely. And then those finalists then would be recommended to the board for final approval with the specific recommendation from the chair. So that final interview would likely take place, right, with the committee, and then the specific individual recommended for the position would be forwarded to the board, much like other administrative positions for executive vice presidents or vice presidents.
A brief follow-up. Thank you for the clarification on that. I know in the last term where I was chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee, this is a topic that came up a little bit, and I was, in serving in audit and compliance and committee leadership, interested, as I think this is in our policy and remains a commitment by many, in the independence of the chief auditor position. And so I was, wanted to listen and see how this topic developed, but I think especially as it was affirmed by the QAR, I think is very helpful. Just, in coming from my perspective in the last 5 years, a change like this is always something that I need to perhaps see it and hear a little bit more about before feeling comfortable with it. And I know we're just reviewing today, but I appreciate the more thorough walkthrough of it, because I had kind of only heard about it in practice and in higher level conversations. So I think it's helpful seeing the docket materials and the way it was laid out and a little bit more clarity about the search process. So thank you.
And thank you for your discussion. Okay, now we're going to act on proposed amendments to Board of Regents policy, reservation and delegation of authority related to the board's reserved and delegated authority for the appointment of specific Division I head coaches. Walking us through these changes made since the Governance and Policy Committee reviewed the proposed amendments in June is Associate Secretary Langworthy.
Chair,
thank you for that nice introduction.
Chair Hipsch, members of the board, if you turn to page 236 of your docket, again, we're using a resolution to amend board policies. This time, only the one reservation and delegation authority with all the delegated and reserved authorities of the board. As Chair Hipsch noted, this was reviewed by the Governance and Policy Committee. I'll just give a quick high-level overview before certainly seeing if there are any questions that you have. At the highest level, and I'll just note that this is a topic that is returned to the board over and over again. If there was frequent flyer miles, this would be, diamond medallion status for the number of times the board has considered this area of its authority and reconsidered it. The last time being in 2024. So, given the current landscape in higher athletics, there's really a need for these coaching hires to be able to come in and on announcement start to recruit or retain student athletes on their teams. That's a different, and that has evolved in this landscape. It's also different from some of the other positions that you appoint, say like a new executive vice president for finance and operations. So at the highest level, what this does, this new policy language, is create a new threshold for the head coaching positions for Division I that are listed in the policy, which is men's and women's basketball, football, men's and women's hockey, and volleyball. And that approval threshold is triggered for new agreements in two, when either item happens in two situations. So first, the new employment agreement exceeds by 10% or more the total compensation of the previous employment agreement. So let's say we had a vacancy created in a head coach. We would look back at the current fiscal year, so last fiscal year, and we would see what the total compensation was for that head coach that created the vacancy. If the new agreement is 10% or more, that will require board approval. If it's below that, it's delegated to the president for her approval. The other provision then looks at buyout. If the buyout exceeds the highest buyout amount included in the previous employment agreement, right? So that would be at any point during the previous coach's career, we would look at the high water mark. If it exceeds it, that would require board approval. If it's below, it's delegated to the president. The same is true for amendments. So for amendments where the remaining total compensation of the agreement is increased by 10% or more, that would require board approval. If below, delegated to the president. And then if the buyout is increased above the highest buyout amount within that contract for that amendment, again, it would be approved by the board. If not, it would be delegated to the president. And it's really difficult, and the board has wrestled with how do you actually figure out what is a coach or what is a contract, what is the value of that, given that many of these contracts have a lot of provisions that depend on performance and are only triggered in certain situations, like winning all of the national championships for a sport. So what we are doing here with this language is that total compensation shall mean the base salary plus any supplemental and other guaranteed pay. So anything that on day one of the contract will be provided to the coach regardless of any other incentives. Finally, I'll just note two other pieces. So for anything that's delegated to the president, right, that falls under those approval thresholds, when those agreements are approved, they shall be reported to the board at the next regular meeting. And this provides you with oversight. You get to see what the contract is, and you get to understand what those provisions are. So for example, if for some reason a coaching contract was written where the base salary was $500, but there was an incentive added that as long as the marching band or the pep bands played the Rouser at least 3 times in a season, you get an additional $10 million. You would then see that contract and might then question, wait, why is this provision in here? And it would give you an opportunity to be able to talk with the president and the respective athletic director. The other item I'll note is there is a tie to board operations and agenda guidelines. Currently, already in policy, there is an urgent approval process that allows the board chair to act for the board in situations where delay could create undue risk to the university, and we can't assemble a quorum of the board. I'll note that that was something that was used more early in my tenure with the Office of the Board of Regents. Today, given the technology we have, we can pretty typically get a quorum of the board together. But we wanted to put that in there just given the time-sensitive nature of some of these appointments. And so with that, Chair Hipsch, I'm happy to answer any final questions.
Thank you. Before we turn to discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution related to Division I Head Coach Appointment Authority? So moved. And there's second? Second. Okay, this moved and seconded. Now we'll turn to discussion. I'll start with Executive Director Steves.
Mr. Chair, and this is maybe particularly for the regents who are not on the Governance and Policy Committee. I just wanted to note that this provision really grew out of the committee's interest in recognizing the changing landscape of higher education Division I athletics and trying to adapt policy to be more nimble in the face of that dynamic market environment. And so we worked closely with the committee and listened and worked closely with the administration and Athletics Director Coyle and General Counsel Peterson. And so all of this comes forward with a tremendous amount of input. And so I want to make sure that you understand that it's been fully vetted with all of the appropriate individuals.
Very good. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. You know, this is something as Associate Secretary Langworthy, I always get them wrong, sorry. I give you a new title every meeting. Went over, this is a frequent flyer. It is an area that we discuss in various ways and iterations and have over the 6 years of my tenure. I want to take a minute to thank the Governance and Policy Committee for all of the thoughtful input that went into developing this. We had a lot of really good discussions over a number of meetings on how this plays into the board's role versus what is reasonable delegation of authority. And I really appreciated how in those conversations, we maybe had, especially early on, maybe had a conceptual idea, but OGC, OBR, the athletic director Coyle, all got together, President Cunningham, to really pencil out what that would mean and how it would look, and came to us with a very solid proposal. There was some input. We did add that additional provision after the last meeting. But really what is before this board is something of which the Governance and Policy Committee developed a supportive consensus around moving forward. And that is something that has been important to Governance and Policy as a committee this year, and have really appreciated everyone's thoughtfulness as we move those things forward. And so wanted to extend my thanks not only to staff and administration on that, but also to the members of that committee, because some of these conversations can feel a little redundant and repetitive, but we have a really interesting opportunity in front of us to provide some of that nimbleness that is lacking right now for purposes of these positions. That's all I have.
Thank you. Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. Just a question and then a comment. Looking at page 236, which is the first page of the resolution, just wondering why item M is being removed as part of this policy, where it says such other administrative positions as the board may specify from time to time. Just want to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Chair Hipsch, Regent Farnsworth, thank you for the very nerdy policy question that now I can address. It is simple cleanup. The board has never used that provision in my 12 years here. It actually causes confusion on the administrative side. So there are a number of administrative policies that are tied into this list of senior positions. And that then triggers different levels of conflict of interest and other sorts of provisions around compensation and other pieces. And so this provision has often caused confusion about how that should be addressed. And so if the board wants to name another position that they want to appoint, then we should just open up policy and amend it that way, instead of having the board maybe take an action on a random board meeting in new business, for example, that then is codified in minutes and then could potentially be lost over time. So this is frankly just to clean that up and to ensure that this list is the list that you want. We then pulled out those coach agreements though, because again, putting that in a new subdivision then lets us expand on that, and it separates those coaches again out from some of the other administrative oversight that the rest of these positions have. And finally, for those of you who are really eagle-eyed, you'll note that this language is different than the resolution we just looked at Chief Auditor. That's because that uses the previous, the current version of the policy. We didn't want to assume this update, but that would be updated based on this action.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a very helpful answer. Maybe I'm the only one, but I've been watching the governance and policy committees and following along this discussion. So thank you for YouTube and the board office for that. And it's been helpful to have the context and hear how this discussion it came together. And the committee leadership has always been at the multiple reports that have happened, and things have been very clear that we've had an opportunity to give feedback. And so I appreciate that. And I feel like this dynamic around voting on coaching contracts has been hard with what we're under currently over the last 5 years. I think, I might be wrong on this, but I think it was either the first or one of the first votes for the 2021 class was on a coaching contract. And it's sort of, for me, always been a well, sure situation, unless, or, what I've always kind of contemplated what would, what would other outcomes be in this situation, just given the policy that we're under now? So I think so that's been hard. And so I think that this policy language is better. I've heard as part of the presentation, heard the comments contemplated around administrative flexibility. I'm more going to comment on, I think from a governance perspective, it makes myself currently and the future people in this seat be able to approach these topics, which are high visibility from a public governance standpoint, better. And so it makes me feel better about continuing, and then there's things where they may still come in front of us, or the language that policy contemplates. So looking forward to supporting this today, and this has been a thing over the last 5 years that's been challenging. From a policy standpoint, I think I've spoken to that, Regent Wheeler has spoken to that in the past, in the special meetings we've had about these, and what we have wasn't working. From a governance standpoint, this feels better to me, and then also hear the administrative parts that are contemplated in the presentation. So thank you for everyone who worked on this.
Thank you, Regent Farnsworth. Regent Bergstrom.
Real quick, I just want to say thanks again to OBR staff, General Counsel's office, AD Coyle's office, President Cunningham. This is I think a really creative, we think it's unique as a solution, but to Regent Farnsworth's point, we're not getting to these votes that are essentially muted or purposeless, because you're not going to, in theory, you're not going to vote down the contract, right? So it's I think gets us to a safer governance, a better governance point. And I appreciate Regent Farnsworth watching the video. I'm going to go look on YouTube. I expect it at least has 6 views. So maybe. Anyway, it was a great discussion. Thank you.
Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Hips, and thank you, Associate Director Langsworthy, too. I really appreciate this. I have to say that I think it balances really the changing landscape of athletics, the alacrity with which these decisions have to be made, usually between the athletic director and the president. And, and our role as oversight, as governance, it kind of balances all that, I think, really well and creatively. And I think it saves us time, too, as a governing board. I'll have to say that I was at the women's basketball game where Coach Medved was introduced to the community as the men's basketball coach. And somebody, my friend next to me said, well, I hope the board approves it, because we hadn't done so yet. So it just makes these things happen in a much better fashion, I think, and yet preserves the right oversight we need to have as a governing board. So I very much appreciate all that went into it. And Regent Verhalen, your oversight of this at the Governance Policy Committee as well.
Regent Ruth Johnson.
Just another quick comment here. So I'm not a member of the Governance Policy Committee. I was one of the 6 people who actually watched this as well. But realizing that D1 athletics are so complex and so important, and is really key part of what we do here. I think it's important we have good governance on this and give us the opportunities that are here. I appreciate the seriousness with which this was conducted, as well as the humor that Regent Bergstrom and others added to the discussion. But anyway, I strongly support this, and thank you for all your work. This is really important as part of our job that we do this right.
Well, I did not watch it. I had other things to do, so just kidding. It feels like we're ready to vote, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Very good. Thanks, committee. Okay, since we didn't have any committee meetings this month, we have no reports, so let's turn to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Okay, seeing none, is there any new business to come before the board? Okay, there be no additional business, we are adjourned. See you in Park Rapids.